Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and welcome back to Tales from the Backlog, where each week I am joined by a guest to deep dive a game from our backlogs. Today's game is a real backlog special. It is Banishers Ghosts of New Eden. But before we get into that, a few quick things. If this is your first time here, first of all, thank you for stopping by, and here's how we handle spoilers on the show. We are not going to spoil the story of Banishers, which is a really important part of the game. So you're free to listen for a while without fear of the story being spoiled for you. We will warn you when that spoiler time is coming. There's also a timestamp down in the show notes for when spoilers begin. And if you enjoy the show, whether you're here for the first time or a returning friend of the show, please consider supporting in any way that you can monetarily on patreon.com/realdavejackson, leaving ratings and reviews on the podcast apps, likes, comments, subscriptions on YouTube, things like that. It's all very helpful for the show. So, as always, I am not here alone. I have a first-time guest on the show, but a long-time friend of the show, a long time coming. He is the host of Pages of Play podcast and a ghost hunting enthusiast. Erik, welcome to the show.
When by thy scorn, O murderess, I am dead, and that thou thinkest thee free from all solicitation from me, then shall my ghost come to thy bed. Hey, Dave. I thought I would kick things off with a poem like we do on Pages of Play. That's always how we open. We're very into our poetry. We have a poetry channel in the Discord and everything. So thanks for bearing with me through that intro.
Of course.
Those, of course, were the famous words of John Donne in his poem, The Apparition. But yeah, thanks, Dave, for having me on. We're obsessed with narrative-driven games, story-forward games, so I'm very grateful that you'd pick me for this one, because this game definitely fits that bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only does your show perfectly align with the game we're talking about, but we've chatted about it, and you're part of the reason I wanted to play the game in the first place. So it's great to have you here, and it's just generally great to have you on the show for the first time.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm excited to talk with you, Dave. Obviously, you play a ton of games, and I think it's fun when you get into some of these deeper narrative games, because there's just so much meat on the bone to chew on, and I think we'll have a lot to chew on today.
Absolutely, yeah. So once again, the game of the day is Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, which is an action role-playing game developed by Don't Nod and published by Focus Entertainment for contemporary consoles and PC, except not the Switch, I don't think, in 2024. Banishers was directed by Philippe Moreau, and we'll have some more credits as we go through, but just want to start with the name at the top of the list real quick. And if you're here and you don't know what Banishers is, first of all, that's awesome of you to stop by and click on a show about a game you don't know anything about. So we have quick pitches for you. I take the easy quick pitch, I think. It is The Witcher in colonial New England. Ghost Story Edition. Erik, how about you?
That's fair. My pitch for Banisher's Ghost of New Eden is you play as warrior therapist couple in this action RPG focused on careful arbitration between the living and the dead as you lead them towards a great reckoning. Yeah, that's perfect. Lots, again, even in the quick pitch, there's a lot to dig into here. And fitting too, this is a pretty long game, at least the way that I played it. I played this on PC, and it took me 38 hours to get through. How about you? Yeah, I played this on Steam Deck, which I'll talk about later. Had its positives and negatives, let's say, to play this on Steam Deck. But I don't think I was as long. I think it was around 30 hours. There's definitely some stuff I skipped, which I'll talk about as well. Not any story stuff, of course, but other things. Yeah. Yeah, around 30 hours.
Yep. There's a lot of stuff that I skipped too. So 38 hours is like the midpoint of playthroughs that I've seen. So yeah, not a short game. So let's rewind a bit. Our histories with this game, and like I said at the top, you and I think maybe 3 or 4 of our other podcasting buddies are one of the reasons that I wanted to play the game in the first place. So what brought you to Banishers? Because I think the game has been overlooked. Like it kind of feels like it came and went without much fanfare, even though it's Don't Nod. It's a very prestigious studio that we're talking about. So what made you want to play it?
Yeah, so precisely what you said, coming from Don't Nod, as a narrative-driven podcast, we always have at least one eye on what Don't Nod is doing. They're just that kind of dev that's consistently putting out games with meaningful storylines and oftentimes like lasting messages, something that'll kind of sit with you for a while once you finish it, which this game certainly did. So I was naturally curious about Banishers because of the pedigree of its developer. I didn't, get it before pre-release or pre-order, but after it came out, I started reading some reviews. And in the reviews, it really stood out to me that it was an action RPG. So Don't Nod isn't necessarily known for. I think they have maybe, and you'll probably talk about Vampyr a little bit, but I think they have maybe just that game from their backlog that's a little more action focused. But a lot of what they do, I mean, Life is Strange being their pinnacle game, right? But a lot of what they do is very, it's lighter on the gameplay, really focused on dialogue trees and decision-based storytelling. So this was different. This was different for them. I was excited to kind of play an action RPG where the story is still, in focus throughout the entire game. So that's kind of how I became interested in it and why I wanted to play it.
Yeah. And then from you playing it and Jake from the pre-order bonus and Dan from the greatest story ever played and a couple other Discord members, I heard about, what the game does well, because there's some stuff that the game doesn't do well, but everyone's pretty much agreed that like that storytelling, that's a hit. So it made me want to check it out. And I didn't even know it was Don't Nod at first, because as you said, it's like you see a game like this and you don't automatically assume Don't Nod. But then I heard it was them, and then I was like, oh yeah, they made Vampyr, however the fuck you say that. Thank you for spelling the word that way, Don't Nod.
Come on, throw us a bone.
I really like that game. I played that maybe 2020 or so, and I liked it a lot. I didn't do a podcast about it, but so my thoughts and opinions aren't really real if they're not recorded, right? But I liked it despite some criticisms of it, but I liked it enough that like I saw this game and I was like, this looks like it's going to be a spiritual successor to Vampyr. I got to pick one throughout the course of the episode.
I change it every time too. Honestly, I like my brain like trips up every time I think about the word. So you're not alone.
Right. So it's like, well, if I say it both ways, technically I'm correct all the time. So, So I was interested to play what looked like a spiritual sequel to that game because I thought it was good. I thought it was a fun game. So that's really what made me want to play it. Plus the praise for the storytelling. And boy, this really does feel like the sequel, the spiritual sequel to Vampyr. I'm picking one. I think that whether you think the vampire, like London under pandemic aesthetic in Vampyr or the colonial New England ghosts aesthetic of Banishers is better, that's going to be personal taste. But my biggest criticism of Vampyr was I did not think that the morality system worked like at all. I thought it was is a cool idea and just didn't work in practice. In Banishers, that feels like one of the best parts of Banishers is like how the morality system plays into the RPG aspect, plays into the story and the choices that your characters make. I thought that was really, really good. And then like all the things that you would expect Don't Nod to do well, like writing good characters and having a good storyline and hitting emotional notes throughout, also a home run. Also kind of like Vampyr, I don't think the combat is great. The difference is that Vampyr is like a 15-hour game, and this took me 38 hours. So when you think that the combat is not great or just kind of okay, 15 hours is enough time where you can be like, it was over before I got real mad at it. And then I don't think Banishers is one of those games. No. So we'll have some stuff to talk about there. But again, it's, I might bring this comparison up later, but this really reminds me of South of Midnight, which came out here in 2025. Exact same type of deal. You're not going to fire up Banishers and play it because you're expecting a great action RPG experience. You want the story. But you have to do the combat and stuff to get to the story. Yeah, so it's not something that you can just be like, ignoring that, not going to focus on combat. I'm just not going to do it. Like, you can't do that. So it's going to be part of the discussion. But overall, I really like this game. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, Dave, if I remember correctly, we were talking on Discord about like, it's like you have your plate and there's the meat on there, but then there's like the peas on the side. You're like, I guess I have to eat those too. It's just like you kind of have to take the combat with this game. It's your way of unlocking a lot of the story content, and you have to play through certain sequences as you go. But yeah, no one is going to be free roaming in this game just to get some more combat in. You really want to get to the next part of dialogue. So I totally agree with you there. But one thing that's fascinating to me about this game, I kind of hinted at it in my description of the game up top. But Dave, when's the last time, or when can you think of, that you played a game where you were a romantically involved couple? Do any games come to mind?
No. There's just straight up no. There are. I feel like there's one in the back of my head, but. Yeah, nothing comes to mind. Of course, there's games where it's like The Witcher 3, you're hanging out with Yen or Triss a lot, and you can choose to romance one of them and settle down with them if you want to, but like their relationship's not the point of it.
Right.
And you don't have to do any of that shit if you don't want to. Like that's like the focus of the story in Banishers is the relationship.
Yeah, and you start in like a committed relationship. You know, that's like very unique too to games. You're right. A lot of games you'll kind of have romance options. I think of like Mass Effect and other games and that RPG flavor that give you, that's part of actually what people love about role-playing games, right? Is you could play different roles. You can romance different people, go your own path. This one you kind of start, like it opens with Red and Antea having a romantic moment. And I thought that was really unique. I can't think of many games that do that. I was thinking of this one indie game called Haven. Shout out to Haven if anyone's played that. That did it pretty well. But that really stood out to me. These two characters intimately know each other's good and bad sides, which is really cool. And that comes out to bear throughout the game. You're kind of looking into like a relationship that has had years to grow, and you see some of how that comes out in the way that they talk to each other, the things that they say, the things that they do. That was really interesting to me. And they're just intensely vulnerable to each other because of that. Some of the things as you get into, there's little like jokes and jabs at each other, some stuff that only they would know about. You're kind of like an outsider looking in on a relationship that has had many years to kind of cook, right? And so some of the inside language that they're using, you don't really understand as a player, but that's true to the relationship, which is really cool. But they know each other's soft spots too, and you can sense some sensitivity around those. And even like their interpersonal conflicts really feel much weightier because of this relationship that they're in. I really wish more games would explore unique relationships like this. It doesn't always have to be kind of this committed romantic relationship, but just different relationships. I feel like games always are giving us that choice. But sometimes it's kind of interesting if they kind of, this is some, it's an open world, semi-open world, but there is a linear, story here. And I feel like we're given some of this as players. And I appreciated that we were kind of along for the ride with this very well-written story. Yeah. And I would say one of the themes too of this, one other thing to mention up top is, there's not only is there a lot to repair between the relationship of these protagonists, like they have this love for each other, but you sense some of the gaps in their relationship still, and there's some like microaggression you'll see throughout the game. But at the same time, the game is focusing on this kind of communal atrocity or something that this community committed, which is this like macroaggression as well. So I really liked that. Not only are we exploring this intimate relationship for the sake of these two people, but it's also kind of connected to the macro level story that's happening around it. So it has those layers in that way, which a really good story does.
Yep. It's all woven together really, really well, in my opinion. And so like, just generally, when we talk about the thing that we think works the best in the game is the story, the characters, and then that morality system and how everything ties together. You are working on both of those levels, basically. I was thinking other game, like, I think the unique thing about the relationship here, and not to get too deep into it, but just like I was thinking about what games do you have relationships between characters, and it's like a love story that goes on, like in Final Fantasy X or Final Fantasy VIII or something like that. But yeah, the difference here is that you're not meeting them for the first time in Banishers. Like you're well along there in their relationship by the time this game starts.
Right.
So lots to dig into. So let's take a music break. We'll come back before we get too deep into it. We'll reset. We'll kind of give the baseline story setup for Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. Probably just going to call it Banishers from now on, but set in 1697 in New England. You play as Banishers. That is a proper noun. Banishers, think ghost hunters. If you love The Witcher, they're witchers for ghosts, basically. I feel like there's a lot of influence there. And the two that you play as, the couple, are Red McCraith, who is voiced by Russ Bain, and Antea Duarte, who is voiced by Amaka Okafor. I want to shout out the voice actors real quick. They're fucking phenomenal in this game. Red and I mean, everyone in I didn't hear a single voice where I was like, they got a fucking accountant to come in and do the voice. But like Red and Antea in particular are like really, really well acted, like incredibly well done, like super well-rounded characters, and the voice acting gives a lot to them. Before we dive too deep into that, they are summoned to New England by a Banisher friend of theirs to investigate reports of a curse. That's their job. There's a ghost haunting, and they're called there to come help out. But we talked about it before the break there, and then we're back here introducing Red and Antea. Just wonderful characters, wonderful performances. Just like you're spending a lot of time with these characters, they are obviously spending a lot of time with each other, and they're just, this is what you'd expect from Don't Nod, like we said, right? Great characters, and that's what you get here in this game.
You know, I was watching an interview with the voice actor of Red and the voice actress of Antea. And they were just having like in real life banter, you know, that was just fun. You could sense a chemistry between them kind of outside of recording. And I think you see that in this game, right? The way that they interact, it just feels natural. And I think they did a really good job of just, you know, even in real life, kind of building upon their relationship between each other as people. And you as they, you know, do their voice acting in this game, you sense that warmth in the moments that they're trying to kind of create that intimacy between each other, but then also, you know, when they have those tensions, it feels visceral and real. So I totally agree with you. Love the voice acting. You were kind of opening up the game, Dave, and talking about them coming to New Eden to investigate the reports of this curse. The opening of this game is interesting. There was a lot here, I feel like, that was very intentionally designed to be the opening of the game. I don't know how much of this like stood out to you, Dave, but it was kind of, as I was thinking about it, some of these things stood out to me. First of all, yeah, you're getting the connection between Red and Antea right from the off of this game. Again, they've had this relationship. You kind of are just like walking into it and just seeing years upon years of them being in this committed relationship, which is very different than any other game opening, I would say. I also think, it's just really important that players buy into that relationship that forms the foundation of this game. So I think that's why they open the game that way. I also really liked how in this opening sequence, you're introduced to a lot of the key characters in the game before they kind of go off, and you'll probably get to like that in a bit, but how everyone kind of goes off to different parts of the world. You'll end up seeing them later, but they're all in kind of this like opening sequence in this hometown of New Eden. You kind of stumble upon them, have some dialogue with them. They don't even really seem like main characters yet. They just seem like other NPCs, but they will end up being primary characters that you must engage with to advance the story. So I really liked how you see them. Everyone's dispersed later, but you at least got that interaction in the beginning. I also really like how the game is set up with this former Banisher calling for help from Red and Antena, who come from England or come from the east from where they are now, over to explore colonial America, right? And they come here to help end this curse. And what they discover is that their mentor, who was their Banisher mentor, he actually is now a ghost that won't leave his wife, and is kind of haunting her, which is really interesting. It just gives you this immediate hook and intrigue as to this person who's training others to banish ghosts is now a ghost and is kind of sticking around, and he doesn't want to leave his wife out of his care for her. So you sense this love, but it's actually kind of harming her by doing so. So it just shows how complicated the ghost human relationships are going to be. There's a lot of complexity to that you'll see throughout this game. And this just starts you off with oh yeah, I didn't think about that, what that relationship would look like and how it might benefit one and not the other. So I really liked how they set all that up in the opening.
Yeah, and like you said, the traditional way, I guess, that we think, or at least I think of ghosts, is they're around because they were wronged in some way, and so they have unfinished business, but that unfinished business is usually something sinister, they can't peacefully ascend or something like that. But Banishers doesn't present ghosts like that all the time. Sometimes it's like you said, with that first ghost that you meet, it's kind of the tutorial for how Banishers do their job and how you will throughout the game. This ghost is here because he wants to stay and help protect his wife. That's all he's.
Right.
There is no malice there at all. He was not wronged. He just died too soon, and he's sticking around because that connection is so strong. But another thing that opening case really presents to you is how Red and Antea view ghosts, as they're kind of in different points in their banishing careers, so to speak. Antea is Red's mentor as well as his his partner. So Antea's been at it longer, and because of that, she's a bit more hardened to the idea that Banisher creed. They talk about that life to the living, death to the dead, and fucking no exceptions to that. She's very hard line about it. Whereas Red is still new to it, and so he can see, especially this first one is his friend or someone he knows, and you're being prepped to have Red be open to the idea of he's not harming anybody. He's here to help, and Antea's no, he has good intentions, but he's a ghost and he will inadvertently kill her at some point. He has to go. And the way that these two things are presented, the different viewpoints and the different experiences, and maybe Antea is more hardened to it, or maybe even a little bit jaded toward the ghosts because she's just been at this longer. I mean, that's real. The longer you work in a job, it's hard to stave that off, I think, especially if you deal with people. So
you become less sympathetic over time with people.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up the way that works. You actively have to fight against that, I feel like. So great intro to these characters here.
Yeah, and it's important to note, and you kind of touched on it, that when a ghost is haunting someone, they are feeding off of their essence, and so it is slowly killing them. There are other ways. There's a lot of lore in this game, so you really have to kind of dig deep into some of this. There are other things that ghosts can feed off of. In fact, the relationship between Red and Antea becomes this essentially, but for the most part, ghosts are feeding off the essence of those that they're haunting and slowly killing them. So it is kind of Antea sees that as hey, by the book, we need to get rid of these ghosts. They need to go to the place where dead people go so that the living can live their life. And she's really not sympathetic to any middle ground with that, whereas Red, just as a character too, this is another really cool contrast that they have between Red and Antea, is that he's You would think almost like stereotypically that would be like the man's role is to be the hard-lined one who's very like by the book. This is how we do this, but
especially because he's Scottish and he's presented as like this Scottish warrior, and we think of that and we're like, oh yeah, tough guy, fucking Braveheart, but he's not. He's much more well-rounded as a person than that.
Yes, he's got a very soft, sensitive side, very empathetic. He like leads by listening. It's very interesting. Not a type of character. You don't see this caricature in any games. This is like its own thing here. You don't see that in Final Fantasy. Like that type of lead.
Right. Or like I think this game took some inspiration from God of War, the new God of War games, especially. And I mean, this is Red is as far from Kratos as a character as you could possibly be. Yeah. So anyway.
He has more words than just boy. So there you go.
Yes.
But so just a quick thing also about Antea. So she's black, which unjustly casts a lot of suspicion on her in this world. Like this.
You see it right away when you go to New Eden. There's some people that are just like, we don't like you. And she's like, well, fuck, I don't like you either.
Because this is what, 1697?
1697, yeah.
So not a great time for diversity in general. She's also a woman. That doesn't help her case in this world, unfortunately. And then she's from Cuba, so just kind of foreigner too. She's not just from like Europe, where a lot of the other folks who are, coming to colonial New England are from. And, if that isn't enough strikes against her in this world, she's also comes from a much less privileged family, comes from a poor family. And so, you talked about how she has just this kind of like hardness to her, some callous to her. I think, a lot of that is justly so because of the world that she's in and what, the hand she was dealt in this world, right? It would make sense while she has some of this like bitterness and some really deep roots in some tragedy. There's, we won't get into it now, but there's definitely some backstory that she shares later that shows why she has kind of a hardened heart in a lot of ways, which Red, as a very soft and gentle man is trying to kind of access in some ways. Yeah, but that just kind of gives you a little bit more about her backstory, what she's up against in this, 1697 colonial New England world. So I thought that was really fascinating, to then contrast that with Red, who's in a much different position, socioeconomically, he's a white male, like it's just different that they have this relationship. And even at the time, and it kind of explores this in other facets of diversity, but for, like an interracial relationship is kind of unheard of at this time too. So that was like a really big deal. But lots to it's just laying the groundwork for a lot of conversation, a lot of complexity when it comes to the layers of who these characters are.
Yep. And these characters and their viewpoints, it's important that I think for anyone who's just kind of following along, who doesn't know if they want to play the game or not, but also for the game, in the way that it ends up working, it's important to kind of lay out who these characters are, how they feel about the world that they're in, but specifically how Red and Antea feel about ghosts and their relationship to the living, because, and this sounds like a spoiler, it's in the trailers, so I'm going to throw it out there. At the beginning of the game, you go to investigate this curse, and Antea gets killed, and Red gets thrown off a cliff, and he awakens down in this seaside cave. He's nursed to health by a mysterious woman down there. We'll learn more about her in the spoilers section, I think. And he comes across Antea's ghost. And so you play as them together throughout the game. This happens like maybe an hour into the game. She dies. And the one who has been staunchly anti-ghost and like, death to the dead, right, life to the living up until this point, she's a ghost now. And she is, quote, haunting Red. Again, no malice there. She's just has this strong connection. And so you have a choice to make. You have you swear an oath to Antea at the beginning of the game that either you're going to help her ascend Or there's this kind of black magic ritual that you can investigate and learn more about that can bring her back to life. And so right away, characters' philosophies that they've built up through years and years of life experience, but also especially Banisher experience, are tested in the strongest way. Like everybody is okay with having this, all your viewpoints work just fine until it involves you directly, right? Like all your philosophies, it's super easy to be like, yeah, this is what I think. This is the morally correct thing to do. But when it's you and your partner that died, are you going to stick to it? And the game really, really challenges Red and Antea. But then it also in turn challenges you as the player, because this becomes like the choice system, the morality system throughout the game. I think it's really, really well done. But it works so well because we got that really strong introduction to how these characters feel about the situation as it applies to other people, and then they have to deal with it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it sets up stakes really early on with the characters, which is really cool. I feel like you get invested in them pretty quickly, and their relationship you buy in, and then when it's just like severed in this like, yeah, the death of Antea is like quick, and then all of a sudden, Red's flung out of a building, and he's just coming to grips with the fact that she's gone. And then she appears as a ghost, and you kind of see this thought. It's like, hey, this is what I was like trained to banish. This is my lover, this is my partner. Like, I don't want to banish them. And Antea's feeling the same thing. She's like, kind of like, I should be banished. I should not be in this haunting Red, but like, I love him. It's just like very, very fascinating that set that up. And, you kind of mentioned this like choice of like, what are we going to do about this relationship? I think I love that this game really sets up this choice of how you're going to essentially, like, there's a couple options here that you come to understand is like you can ascend Antea. Actually, this is how you can do it for all the other like hauntings and ghosts in the game. You can ascend them, which is essentially like almost like send them to like heaven is the way I would like, I don't know, or send them to like some type of like good ethereal, the life after, beyond. I don't know what you would call that.
It's weird because this is like highly Christian society that you're dealing with, but they never outright say ascend means send them to heaven, banish means send them to hell. But it's very obviously like ascending is like peacefully send them to the afterlife, and banish is like send them to the bad place.
Yeah.
And then also there's you have the choice, you can resurrect Antea.
Yes.
When you're dealing with the other haunting cases, you can because there's always a ghost and there's always a living person, and the haunting cases revolve around their shared backstory. And if you feel like the living person is to blame more than the ghost, you can kill them. And the reason you're doing this is because Antea is technically haunting Red, and so she's going to be draining his life essence throughout the game. So to prevent this, by ascending a ghost or blaming a ghost, you can get the ghost's kind of essence, and that will kind of nourish Antea so she doesn't take it from Red. Or if you blame a person, you steal their essence and give that to Antea, and that contributes to bringing her back to life. So it plays into the choices that you make throughout the game. And I wanted to kind of chat with you a little bit about choices in video games, and especially because you love especially narrative-based games. I think that this is something that a lot of people, myself included, value in narrative games, is having some degree of choice. But choice in video games has come a really long way from you make a choice at the end of the game that determines which cutscene plays at the end, And it's much more complex in this game in a good way, I think.
Yes. This is not that game where the ending you get is decided in the end of the game.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of how they used to do That's how they used to do like any like branching narratives, is it would branch, but just at the very last like 30 minutes, you know? So it's like,
yeah. Do you kill the guy at the end or do you spare him at the end? And that's the cutscene that you get.
Yeah. So it's like a long tree branch with no branches until the very end of it.
Right.
But this game is, you're given this choice early. Are you going to ascend Antea? Or do you want to resurrect Antea, right? Resurrection would be like, hey, we want to be back together in the flesh. And yeah, as we said earlier, you're feeding off of, you know, humans, the ghosts are. So you're essentially like going all the way with that to the extreme, like getting enough energy from them to then resurrect in bodily form Antea.
Right.
Which is, you have to do, you know, that's not going to be an easy route. You'll have to blame. Yes, there are some people who, and we'll probably get to that. You're like, yeah, let's blame that person. Like,
yeah, they gotta go. Yeah,
they were a sicko. Like, let's get rid of them. But there's gonna be plenty of situations. I think the sheer volume of people you need to blame, it kind of messes with you, because it's like, I don't want to blame everybody. Like, not every living person in this game is to blame for some of the things that happened. And so you kind of understand that you're going to have to get your hands dirty if you're going to go the resurrection route and you know, kill some potentially innocent people to do so. So you're already, you know, you talked about the morality system. You're already kind of like feeling like, I don't know about that. How far am I willing to go to resurrect Antea and bring this relationship back? Or do I ascend, which, you know, is kind of sending them off to some heavenly type existence, but then they won't see each other again, right? Like, that's just kind of like they're gone. And as you ascend people in this game, it's like they leave, like they stop the haunting and they go. So it is a tough decision, and you're forced to make that decision early and commit to that between the couple. And then the rest of the game is going to test your commitment to that decision, which is really, really cool. And that's, I think, what you're getting at, is like, not many games do that with that, where it's like, you've made the decision already. It's just, are you going to follow through with it? And you're given points throughout the game where they kind of say like the classic, like, are you sure? But it's more of, in their conversation, they're like checking in with each other, like, hey, do we still want to do this? What do you think? They might have different opinions. It's just wild how this game really does test your commitment to that decision you make within the first like 30 minutes of the game. It's crazy. Yeah.
And so like Red and Antea will constantly discuss this, as they should. And also the kind of like side stories that you play, the haunting cases, will test your commitment to the oath that you swore, while also testing your commitment to doing the right thing in those individual cases. And the right thing is not always apparent. Sometimes you'll look at a haunting case and be like, actually, everyone here seems fine. Like, this was all just a big
misunderstanding,
unfortunate thing, or a big misunderstanding. Sometimes you'll look at the thing and you'll be like, everyone here sucks. I'd kill
everyone
all
needs
of
to
you
go.
if I could. So, and then there's a bunch that are like very complicated. So let's say maybe you set out on the route and you're like, yeah, let's try to bring Antea back. And then the first time you're forced with, okay, if we're going to do this, I'm going to have to kill this innocent person here. And that doesn't feel like what Red would do. And it plays into kind of a theme of like, Banishers kind of have like Judge Dredd powers. Like they, if you kill someone as a Banisher during a case, like, you don't get in trouble for it. So it's all on your moral compass that's telling you like whether you want to actually follow through with that. Or if you want to help us Antea ascend, you need to not kill people, even though some people deserve to do it. There's some leeway in there, but still like there's a lot of nuance to the choices that you make. And the thing that like pushes this over the top for me is two things. The haunting cases that you do, these are like the major side quests in the game. Most of them will tie into Red and Antea's story in some way. Like maybe there's a parallel situation going on. And then sometimes characters will comment on your situation. Like say, hey, Banisher, why do you have a ghost hanging out with you? Like, you're going to judge me, but then look at what's going on in your life. Like, who are you to judge me in my situation? Look, you're a Banisher with a ghost following you around. Like, the way they tie in together is like really fucking good. This is This is the good shit. This is the stuff where you play this game and you're like maybe it's been a while since you played a Don't Nod game that like really hit you the way maybe the first Life is Strange game did. Or like me, you thought the morality system and the choices in Vampyr were not implemented super well. This is that stuff where you play this game and you're like, no, this is that good shit. This is expert storytelling and expertly weaving in side stories into the main story and tying into your RPG mechanics, because you need this stuff to get stronger as fighters and all of that stuff too. It's just really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever I'm reading a really good, let's say, novel, and I'll read like a page or even just a passage from it, and I'm like, I want to read that again, like right afterwards, because it just like hit me in a certain way. I feel like this game is constantly just, you're pausing just to think and kind of just, brood over these decisions, because they're so nuanced and so complex. They're not just like simple black and white decisions. It's like I don't envy the role that, Red and Antea had here, because I wouldn't know what to like judge in these situations. It's like, I don't know who's right, who's wrong. There's so many layers to why these people are doing what they're doing, and yet you have to make that decision, which is crazy. But I was going to ask you, Dave, what did you decide to do? What was like your commitment with Red and Antea when you played through the game?
I chose to ascend Antea because number one, I felt like that was probably the right thing to do, but also it was like Antea's really conflicted once she becomes a ghost. And like we said, like your own morals and stuff are tested when it directly affects you rather than you can be a passive observer for somebody else. And Antea has a little bit of that too, but she generally is like, okay, well, I guess it's my time to go, even though this is really fucking unfair.
Right.
And I don't want to lose you. So that was my choice at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like that is something that Antea just philosophically would align with, is wanting, to be ascended or, not to be resurrected. But I also felt, so I did the same, but maybe for a little bit different reason. And I felt like throughout this game, you kind of see like people are making very selfish decisions. Let's just say like very like for them, for their family. It's like kind of a dog eat dog world in colonial New England, like everyone trying to survive. That's the whole like settling America. Like you're going out, you're making your house, out of wood that you cut and all this stuff. And I could just sense that like this for them would be, that's what they kind of want. They want to be together. But that is a very like selfish for them decision. It's kind of like putting their relationship above, because they're going to have to kill people and sacrifice people. Let's be real. That's like what you're being asked to do if you go the other route. And again, I'm not making any like moral judgment on that per se, but it's just like, I felt like this community needed some people to think outside of themselves a little bit. And we'll kind of get into that later. And so I was like, I feel like the rest of the town needs this, like, for this to go this way. So it's kind of it was interesting because I felt like it was a very personal decision, obviously, between the two, but I also felt like there was broader implications than that. So that's kind of why I was like, I think, I'm going to go the ascend route for that reason.
Yeah. You mentioned something there that kind of, this is like, I don't know if I would frame this as like an outright criticism of the storytelling, but it's like a weird quirk of this being a video game and you're going in settlements that don't have a lot of people living there for various reasons. Basically, everybody in the game is haunted by a ghost.
True.
Like every major character, basically every named NPC that you meet ends up giving you a haunting side quest, which means everybody's haunted by a ghost at some point. And being haunted by a ghost when you're not able to do this stuff to stave off like the stealing of the essence means that all of these people are kind of going crazy. And like there's people that you meet that are like in hysterics or talking to nobody or, just standing out in the road staring at, the side of a building or some shit. And like on top of all that, there's this bigger curse. The
Yes.
thing that killed Antea is like this
The nightmare.
region-wide nightmare curse that is like super bad. And it's like, it's fucking up the crops, it's fucking up the weather. And so like, it kind of got to a point where I was like, how does anyone like survive in here? Like the farmer's cursed, there's no more food being grown, you know? It's like, how are these still functioning in a way? Like
Yeah.
it kind of got me thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's not something that I like dwelled on as I was playing, but it was a thought where it's like, there is no normal functioning person in this entire town. How is the town still going? You know?
Yeah, you're right. I'm honestly trying to think of like one person that seems like they're doing okay. No one's doing okay.
No one's doing okay. This is a terrible
bleak.
place.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Before I forget to mention this is 1697 in New England. As far as I know, aside from a couple of characters, there is zero indigenous presence in the region, which I thought was real weird. 1697. And I was like, did Don't Nod just not want to go there? They explained it in the lore as saying like, because of this region-wide curse, they all left, like the indigenous people left because they understood that there was nothing
to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, just look at all the people that are there and how they're living their lives. But
Bye.
So it's like, that is something, if you boot the game up, you'll be like, where are the indigenous people? There is a lore explanation for it, but I was like, that's kind of, you know, it felt like a story thing that would be explored with all these colonizers and stuff coming in. And they explain away why it's not a part of the game, really. There's a couple side stories that deal with it, but otherwise, very minor thing.
Yeah, it was, I feel like they kind of gave a convenient answer out of that one with what you're saying. It's like there was a curse, so they all just left. It wouldn't be like that. There would be people who stuck behind, like in any migration of people, there's always multiple stories of what that means for the people of that culture and society, right? There would have been many more people who've stayed behind or found a different way or, you know, settled somewhere else, things like that. It doesn't really speak to that. There's one main haunting, which was actually my favorite one. And I know we'll talk about some of our favorites later, but it was Jane, essentially this woman who is Native American, and hers was great. I loved her story, but it's like, it just felt like, why was she the only one, you know, who has this like story to tell? There was a lot more to it than that. So yeah, that was definitely something. I feel like for all the great writing, that felt a little underbaked, a little underutilized, that kind of thread of history.
Yeah. So let's see. We've talked about a lot. I think if anyone's still with us, just here in this like just story section still, right. I want to kind of shout out like the presentation of this game. The graphics are beautiful. It's a beautiful game. The character models are really, really good, especially Red and Antea. That's not really what I'm talking about though. I'm talking about there is I wrote down like a prestige TV style presentation for Conversations. It's a brooding game. It's really slow. 38 hours for me to beat it. And part of it is because if you sit down and talk to an NPC and don't skip through the voice acting, conversations take a while. They're pretty meticulously delivered. Especially Antea. She speaks in a very slow, deliberate voice, and it could be a second language thing as she's not from an English-speaking country. But I mean, other characters, nobody's talking as fast as I'm talking right now in the game, ever. Never.
No.
So it really is one of those games where they want you to kind of sit down and hang on every word of conversations. Yes. I think the writing is good enough to support that a lot of the time, especially when Red and Antea are having like heart-to-heart conversations. Those are like very, very good. Yeah. But they definitely ask you to slow down and kind of soak in all of this.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the dialogue would be good as like an audiobook almost. Of like, it's just that like it's paced that well. And it's slowed down and it's just really quality. It could be in a novel. One thing I love to do, you know, on my show is quote the games. I write down quotes for games all the time because obviously I love stories. I love writing. So one that I want to read for the listeners, just to give them some insight and just a little sampling of the writing. This comes from Red, who is, man, the voice acting, like the Scottish voice acting is so good. So I won't do that part justice. I'm not Scottish. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so this is Red talking to another character who kind of had a conflict with her sister. So it gives you a little bit of the background. Red says, "Are you so desperate to prove your sister wrong that you forget your own interest? You can climb your sister's pedestal or stomp your feet like a child, but neither serves you. Measure your worth by your own mark." Then the woman says, "What do you know of sisters?" And then Red says, "Enough to wish I had not lost mine." And it was just like, wow, that's just like, I mean, it's rich. It's just rich writing. And I'll have some more quotes I'm sure I'll pepper in, but that just kind of goes to show you what you were just talking about, Dave, how well thought of even just like every moment of dialogue between characters is. It's just incredible, all the side quests and whatnot. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. And, like you said, the last line of that quote that you quoted, Red says, "Enough to wish I had not lost mine." And then there's like, it's not like, okay, we're going to have this character be like, "Oh, what happened to your sister?" It's like right. The conversation just, that's how that conversation ends. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what gave me that like prestige TV feel where like, you would watch a Game of Thrones back when that show was hitting and you would hang on every word that characters said. And you'd be like, that's a really good short little conversation they had there. And
leaves you wanting more.
Yeah. And so that's the way this works too. It's really, really well done. It's an acquired taste of a pace for a video game because there's just not a whole lot of games that really ask you to slow down the way this game asks you to. Red Dead Redemption 2 is another example of that, where like if you're trying to fly through that and make story progress as fast as you can, like you're kind of missing the point of what that game's writers want you to do and how you want to experience it. And this game feels that way from a story perspective, at least. Mm-hmm.
And the voice acting, back to that, like you don't really want to skip the dialogue, right? Like it's so well delivered. Yeah. So in most game, like I feel like most RPGs almost feel synonymous. Like I'm going to have a dialogue skip button. I'm going to need it because it's going to get on thick and there's going to be a lot of terms. And I just want to read it and not like listen to it if it even is voice acted. I feel like this game is so well presented and delivered in terms of the voice acting that you want to listen to it. Again, maybe back to that audiobook style. One thing you kind of mentioned, Game of Thrones, the prestige style. Maybe this is where we talk a little bit about, like Witcher 3 a little bit, because I'm curious about this. Talking about inspirations, right? So I played. I didn't play through all of Witcher 3. I got maybe through like the first hour or so, and then it really began to open up, and I got a little bit overwhelmed by all the map markers. Maybe I should have just turned those off. There was a lot. But that game is, recognized, celebrated for the quality of its side quest writing. Right. And so, and we just talked about how well a lot of the side quests here are written. And I just would be curious, Dave, in kind of your perspective as someone who's played Witcher 3. Yeah. Does that feel like an inspiration? Do you feel like they were able to like improve on anything that Witcher 3 did? Do you feel like there were some misses that maybe they didn't quite kind of hit the levels of Witcher 3? But I feel like Witcher 3 definitely is like pinnacle for a lot of people for like really strong action RPG story. Has a lot higher score on OpenCritic than this game does. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think that the thing that both of those games do really well, Witcher 3 and then Banishers here, as far as the side quests go, is they will both give you something seemingly like cut and dry, simple situation. In The Witcher 3, it's like, oh, there's this monster out here. It's terrorizing our town. And then in Banishers, this person's haunted by a ghost. The ghost has to go. Obviously, they're fucking things up for everybody. And then the thing that both of those games do really well is once you learn more about the situation, that's the thing that like really connects these two games is the investigation side of figuring out what is the truth of this situation here? Why is this ghost here versus what is the deal with this monster in The Witcher 3? And there's long, you talk to people, you do investigative stuff, you you look in people's houses and you follow trails and footprints and things like that in both games. And you normally find out that the situation is nowhere near as cut and dry as it seemed. And that creates drama in a really effective way. And that's why The Witcher 3 side quests are so good, because it always feels like it's being turned on its head. Even when you're expecting it to be turned on its head, it never turns out the way you thought it was going to. And then Banishers gives you these ghost hauntings that seem so simple. The ghost is haunting the shop. We got to get rid of the ghost so the shop can function again.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the time you learn all the different sides of the story, it's so complicated, and there's so much humanity on display in all of these cases that they become difficult choices out of something that seemed very simple at the beginning. The ghost is fucking up the blacksmith, so all the ironwork sucks because the blacksmith can't do their job correctly. Like, that one turns into a decision where I'm like, I don't know what to do here. Like, it's kind of difficult because one thing is going to make things worse for the town, and one thing is going to make things better for the blacksmith. Like, it's gonna be tough. I think that's what The Witcher 3 did really well too. That's a very long way of walking through that, but I really think that's the secret sauce for these good narrative side quests. Because you wrote a note that I totally agree with. When you go to characters for side quests, it's never like, can you get me 5 fur pelts by killing wolves and bring them back here? It's never that shit. And then one of the cool things is when you do side quests and you make your decisions, those decisions have impacts, and you can come back later and see the impact of your choices. And there's often a follow-up side quest of like, you help the blacksmith with the ghost, but now the blacksmith needs help getting back on their feet, just as an example I'm making up. So there's another smaller side quest to kind of like tie up narrative threads. And it's just really fucking good.
Yeah, right. Nothing just kind of ends right after you finish a quest. Like, those people still exist in the world. And so you'll come across them later, or you'll go back there and visit them, and they've like done something different with their life. You know, you're like, wow, there was like true progression for this character. It wasn't just like, because in most games, like, it's like end side quest, now that person is like gone. Like, they're just like, it's like out of sight, out of mind. I finished their quest. That person again. Yeah, exactly. But I know that The Witcher is similar to that, where you kind of can revisit people as you would in real life. There is definitely a sense of humanity there that I really loved about this game. So definitely agree.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I think that we've touched on a lot of the story stuff for now. So let's put a pin in story stuff. There's a lot more to talk about, but we have the spoiler section for that. I think that we've like properly introduced the things about the story that this game, in our opinion, pretty much across the board does really well. A couple things that we're like, it's a little weird that, this is going on, but yeah. So that's a lot. Let's come back and let's talk about what it's like to play Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden. So we mentioned at the top, I kind of hinted in the top level thoughts an hour ago now, that this is an action RPG, and that this is the weakest part of the game, is the combat and the kind of open world RPG stuff that you're doing. The combat is third person, light attack, heavy attack, block, parry, dodge, your basic action RPG tool set at this point. You can switch between Red and Antea by pressing a button, and Antea is a ghost, so she has ghost powers, and each character is more effective against different types of enemies and stuff like that. I think that the combat feel is pretty clunky, but you get used to it, and I felt like I was pretty good at the combat. I played on the standard difficulty for the whole game. the issue to me wasn't that it feels clunky. The issue to me is that you do way too much combat and you fight the same types of enemies way too. Like, I didn't count them. I would say there's 10 or fewer types of enemies that you fight in a game I played for 38 hours. That's excluding boss fights, which there's like a handful anyway. Way too few enemy variety types to make the combat still feel fresh at hour 35 versus hour 5.
Yeah, it's a problem. They're also not visually distinct at all.
I don't know if this is a spoiler, but you never fight a human in the entire game. It's always ghosts, and it's like wolves. 5 different kinds of
wolves.
Or wolves. That's it. It's
the only animal
living thing you fight is a wolf.
It's a wolf.
Otherwise, it's like 5 different types of ghosts that have slightly different color palettes, you know?
Like, at least let us fight more of nature. Like, bears would be there. Like, can I fight a bear? You know, I don't know. Just give me something different. Not just a wolf. Like, wolves wouldn't be the only thing attacking me in colonial New England. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I interrupted you there on your thoughts about the combat. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, but you're right. Not visually distinct. I honestly, it's so hard to remember what you fight. They're all just kind of this like ghostly green character with, you know, maybe some are bigger than others. That's the only thing I remember is the size difference between some of the enemies, which is not. Yeah,
there's
not a great
one
sign.
of them's like a big brute, like Incredible Hulk, like, and that's the only one that's different.
Which is not like we've played enough enemies like that in other games. Like there's nothing that makes it stand out in Banishers, which is a shame because you could do for having such strong narrative chops. Like there could be so much story you could even put into the combat with like who you're fighting and what they represent and their like there could be backstories to that. It just feels like all of the life was just sucked out. Maybe it's because they're ghosts. I don't know. But all the life was just sucked out of the combat. And they like focused it on the story, but it just made the combat a slog to get through. I played it on easy just to make the combat go faster, being honest. Because I feel like the way, even just the way they did the combat, it's like harder just means more of like damage sponge. Like it's just, that's all it really does. I felt like was just like how much more damage output do they give and how much more damage input do they need before they die, and that's like the combat difficulty slider.
Yeah, the things that you're fighting, because I thought about it, I was like, will turning up the difficulty make things more interesting? And I was like, I don't know, you're fighting the same 5 types of ghosts, so I don't want the fights to go longer against these same things. I don't think the things I'm going to do, like what skills I use with Antea versus what buffs do I equip with my equipment, like I don't think it's going to meaningfully change strategy. I didn't turn it down to easy because like the fights didn't last that long anyway, but I definitely don't begrudge anyone who's like, I want this to take 30 seconds instead of 2 minutes, you know, like it's not. Me. Yeah. It's a solid choice because like there's a certain point in the game where you get like a visual language of like you walk up to a place in the open zone and you're like, that's a round area that's probably going to be a combat. And I got like a little spike of, I got like a spike of dread of like, fuck, I hope there's not. Yep. There's the combat beginning sound effect. Here we go. It's not a great feeling to have in a game that I'm on my way to a place to continue a story that I really like. And I just feel like I'm constantly being interrupted. And like, I don't think this game would be better without combat entirely because you're banishers. You're supposed to be fighting ghosts. Like that's your job. So like you should be fighting stuff. It's just, they needed way more variety in what you're doing. Like, they ran out of possible combinations of these types of enemies to make things feel fresh. Like, I don't know, within the first 10 hours of the game, you've seen basically everything in every combination that could ever make things feel interesting. So again, I think the combat feels okay once you get used to it. It's a little clunky. You're not very fluid. At a certain point, the combat runs its course and then the game goes on for 20 more hours.
Sure. Yeah, and it's one of the few games where you get to like a big open area, and you're like, I wish someone would just talk to me. Can I just have dialogue? Like, is there someone standing in the middle that I could just go and have a conversation with? Because that would be way more interesting than fighting anyone here. Which in most games you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to fight. Very opposite. One, I guess, I don't know if it would be really a saving grace, but I did appreciate some of the, I want to talk about the skill tree a little bit. Because one unique thing about the combat, which is, I just wish they kind of did a little bit more with it, is you're switching between Antea and Red, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
The fact that like you go into like kind of a ghost mode with Antea, and she does a different type of damage, almost like I would say like an armor piercing, if you would think of it in like another game, where she kind of like basically opens them up, exposes them for attacks from Red to finish them off, which is pretty cool. And your skill tree, it's somewhat robust. There's a lot of different abilities that you can do. There's some, it's kind of like, it's not, obviously this isn't a Metroidvania, but there's like, you're getting certain abilities that unlock parts of the map that you go back to later. I kind of think of, what are those like Jedi Fallen Order does stuff like that, where you kind of get abilities and come back to them and open up areas. So you're getting like traversal abilities, but there are also combat abilities. So that's kind of cool. So the skill tree, you're getting these abilities. So you are able to at least change up what you're doing, even if the enemies are doing the same things. Maybe what you do and how you fight can be a little more fun if you play around with the different skill tree options. So I thought that added some flavor. It at least kept me interested in kind of like, what attacks do I want to do between Red and Antea? How do I want to balance out how they're fighting? Do I want to use my gun? Do I not? So I thought that was fun. But I would love, Dave, what did you think of like the skill tree?
I think the skill tree and then your gear and like the passive buffs that your gear gives you, I think they push you into like one focus of combat. Like, do you want Antea's abilities to be really fucking good? Do you want Red's gun to be really good? Do you want Red's banish move, which is like you fill up a meter in combat and you hit A and it does this like big banishing power attack and it does a ton of damage. And that's what I spec for, is fill up the banish meter more quickly and make that banish attack more powerful. I think that like with the skill tree, especially, the gains of the things that you unlock in the skill tree didn't feel valuable enough for me to like be like, oh, that's awesome that if I'm in the middle of a combo and I switch from Antea to Red, he'll do like this attack that does 10% more damage or some shit. Like it had a lot of stuff that felt like that, where it was like, I guess that sounds okay if I ever do that. So again, I tended to just like almost like min-max my way into one particular thing being the bread and butter of my combat. And that's how I approached it.
Yeah, it was a little too much. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, like it was just like some stat increases. Like, it does 10% more, 15% more. It needed like some visual flair to it. Like, I think of like one of the great games of this year so far is Clair Obscur. Here we are in 2025. We must talk about this game, but it like the combat in that game, like there's just so much spectacle to it, and every like move that you do, you're just like, I can't wait to see that again because it was so fun to watch. And I feel like this game would have benefited from not just like, oh, I do this move and it like does more damage and I see like more numbers on the screen, but like, could there be some more like visual difference and something to watch and something cool to do? But there just wasn't a ton of that there, which I think would have made it more enjoyable as a player if you had a little bit more of that.
Yeah, it was like, Antea has this big AoE blast ability it's really good, but then there's, a skill tree node that's like that blast radius is expanded 20%, but the cooldown is slower by 20%. And I was like, that doesn't feel worth it. So I guess I'll pick it because I have to pick something on the skill tree.
There's trade-offs.
Yeah. As far as spectacle goes, this combat feels like it's like the God of War 2018 style combat. Like the parry's like a big spectacle thing, and the banish attack is a big,
That's true.
Zoom in, slow down type spectacle thing. But otherwise, like the combat doesn't really have the impact of, a God of War 2018. Your weapons don't feel like they're really, you're fighting specters, so I guess it makes sense, but like it's not satisfying to hit something with your weapon. It's not really satisfying to punch with Antea in her ghost form.
Oh, yeah,
it's just like
punches.
something that you do. So it's just like a part of a greater critique of this as like an RPG, that your skill tree doesn't feel great. Your weapon, like I very rarely switched equipment because I'd pick up a new weapon or a new gun, and I'd be like, I don't fully understand these stats, but also these passive like benefits that they give don't seem great. So just path of least resistance, I'm sticking with what I'm using already. And then there's like multiple currencies that you pick up, and like one of them you can't even spend most of the time. It's like, it's just it doesn't work fully. Like the one thing that like does play in well with the rest of the game is, in order for you to get stronger in combat, which you need to do, or turn it on easy, you need to engage with the side stories and do the haunting things. And like narratively it plays in too, because like the story in Banishers is basically like you lost against that big bad, and you need to get stronger so you can go back and fight it again.
Them. Yeah.
So getting stronger within the RPG systems plays in with the story. It forces you to engage with the side content. So that stuff works really well. It's just like once you get into like, okay, now I'm fighting stuff to get stronger, then it's like, I don't think it would be better without it. I think it would feel weird if you didn't fight stuff in this game, or if you fought very, very sparingly. It would feel weird. But at the same time, it doesn't feel great when you do. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, I've debated that a lot. I'm like, if this were just like a more open world investigation game, how would that play? And maybe its pacing would suffer. Maybe it's like, like you just, part of it is the combat and even how that speaks to their relationship and how they kind of like fight together. I don't know. Yeah, I have debated whether or not this would have just been better if you're like in those little hubs and you just like are like an investigator and you just kind of go around and solve cases, but don't do the fighting. In South of Midnight, I ended up skipping combat arenas, and I was like, it was fine without it, So I was thinking about that for this game, but I don't know. I could be persuaded that you do still need some type of combat in this game, just only if it were a little bit more engaging, Well,
it's like, there's like Telltale did a Batman game, and like Batman fights people, and I'm sure he fights people in the Telltale game. You just don't do it yourself. So like if the game was reworked where it was a very different style of game and there was no combat, but there was still fighting in the story, like that would work. But I don't think that a South of Midnight skip combat thing would really help this game. You're still going to be running through these long stretches of wilderness and stuff like that.
Yeah, the world design.
The world design is cool, by the way. It's like it's not an open world, but it's like you got these big zones to explore. They're gated by these abilities that Antea gets, Metroidvania style.
Yep.
And they're big. The world feels big. It feels wild. I forgot to talk about this with presentation, but the sound design and the music is like really good for building the atmosphere of the spooky woods. Like it's not a horror game, but it's a spooky kind of vibes style game. Like those horror movie strings, those high strings and like ghostly whispers out in the forest and stuff like that. Music and sound, I think, is primarily credited to Trevor Morris. So just shout that out. It's not like a memorable soundtrack game, but it is a memorable sound design game, I think.
It's a vibe.
Yeah. But yeah, the open world stuff, the zones are cool.
Yeah, I really liked the world. I'm not a big fan of open world games normally because, as a story person. Like, I feel like you so often get so sidetracked from the main quest in open worlds, and you end up doing all this other stuff, and you're like, wait, what was I trying to do again? And this game would like suffer a lot from that if you lost track of like, wait, who's this Antea person? What are we trying to do? like that's the whole point of this game, is their relationship and moving towards like her ascension or resurrection. Like, you can't, you don't want to lose that thread in this game. Let's just say that. So I typically don't love open world design for that reason. I feel like you get a little bit lost in the sauce. But this game kind of was like hub based, which I really liked. Like, there are like open world like hubs, and there's a lot of in the center of the hub, there's a lot of NPCs. They have like a little settlement, a lot of people to talk through. You'll get haunting quests that'll take you a little bit further out from like camp, let's say, into some other there's some, you're going in caves. There's actually some challenges which I did like, which are more traversal based, but they're in like these like, I don't know, much more like beautiful like locations. Might be on like the cliffs or the beach, or there'll be like a shipwreck on a beach that you'll explore, or there's just some really cool Fort Jericho is like this like wintry like snow covered land, and lots of graves from a big battle that happened there. There's the marshes, like there's so many cool places that you end up going. So I really liked the world. That was part of I wouldn't want to do away with any of that. I feel like this place, the setting itself told a story. A lot of environmental storytelling too in this game, which is really cool. So they did a really good job with that. And I think even though the music wasn't memorable, like you said, I feel like it was just enhancing your experience of the world. Even if you didn't recognize it, you were hearing it, and it was doing that.
It would be a weird game if it had like big hooky, tunes in the soundtrack. That's not the vibe here. The vibe is spooky woods. So it fits
Metal Gear Solid.
It fits really well. Yeah. The one thing too, like with the open zones, like if anyone again is like thinking about playing this, it's not really a game where I would recommend going off the path of your current quest to explore. Like, true, you're not really going to be rewarded by exploring. A lot of times you'll come across maybe an obstacle you can't get past with your current abilities, or you'll come across like a location that looks cool, but you can't do anything there yet because there's a quest, like that shipwreck, for example. Like, there's a quest that will take you to that shipwreck later.
Yes.
If you go there early, it's like, cool, I can walk around this shipwreck, but there's really nothing there to do except for like the pure, joy of exploring a cool shipwreck. But like, there's nothing to find. There's no characters there until you initiate the quest later on. So eventually I stopped like, I do the thing in a lot of games where it's like the main quest is this way, but I'm going to go this way and see what's over there. And I stopped doing that in Banishers because the cool locations are all involved with quests that I'll find later.
Yeah.
And those kind of open world activities like optional combat arenas and stuff like that, I did not care. Like, I did not feel rewarded for figuring out, how do I access this place? And then I go there and it's like, there's a optional boss fight here. And I don't want to fight that thing. Like, I've already fought 15 of those things. So I do think it's a game where it's like, you'll appreciate the world if you engage with all the side quests more than you will if you just like do the Breath of the Wild thing and be like, I'm going to go see what's over there.
Pick a direction, go over there.
Yeah, it's not that kind of game. Yeah.
Yeah, like you'll see there'll be like a symbol like on a bunch of crates or something. Let's just give an example here. You can go explore it and be like, okay, I don't know what that is. There's something here. But then if you do the quests, it'll just be like explained, and you'll go visit those same places and you'll be like, oh, that symbol is there's this woman who's like on a manhunt to stop this one like group of people, and that is their symbol. And so she's chasing them around the map to stop them. It's like, you'd much rather know that than just like go there and not piece any of it together. So do the quest. You know what I mean?
Right. So I think with gameplay, I didn't hate it, but it is the weakest part, especially the combat. And it's one of those things where, again, South of Midnight, great comparison, and we talked about it in that episode too. But if I were to just like talk to a friend outside of like a hypercritical context like this show, I would really just talk about the story. And then I'd be like, yeah, the combat's fine. Just like do what you can to get through it. And I would not really talk much more about it. We would say that thing that we say, it's not the reason we're playing Banishers, but it's my philosophy on this show that if it's a major part of the game and something that you're forced to engage with a lot, which you are forced to, the combat, especially in this game, then it's you have to talk about how it plays into the game and how I think in this game it takes away from the experience. And I don't know if you got this too, maybe not because you were playing on easy and combats were quicker because of that, but like when you're doing those side quests too, and like the story content's really great, the thing that you do from a gameplay side of those is often explore a location, do some puzzling, and fight a bunch of stuff. So like it kind of dragged down some of those side quests too, where I'm really interested in like getting the thing that's going to teach me more about this story. But in order to do that, I didn't mind the puzzles, but in order to do that, I'm going to have to do a bunch of puzzles and I'm going to have to fight a bunch of stuff. And so I have to do a bunch of things that I don't like doing in order to get to the thing that I do like, which is the story payoff for this side quest. So it kind of dragged it down a little bit, like the experience of it. And then like the payoffs were always good. So it was always worth doing at the end of the day, but the process of doing them was an issue, I think.
Yeah, whenever a character as part of the side quest is like, oh, you got to go meet my sister. She's out in the woods way out yonder. You're like, don't make me go out way out yonder. I know what's out there. It's just a bunch of...
I look at the map. I don't have a fast travel point way out yonder. Fuck, I'm going to have to walk there. I'm going to have to fight 10 things.
Just to get to way out yonder and save your sister. It's just like, I wish I could teleport there. That would be great. I'm a ghost. Like, why can't I do stuff like that? Yeah, and I would say I would recommend to one thing I did have fun with. So it's kind of like I didn't like the combat, but I found ways to like break it, which was fun. So which was pretty engaging for me. So you talked about, I played on easy, but there's also, you can totally spec towards, we talked about that AoE spell from Antea. I spec that thing way up and I could do like one of those. And even though it had like a really long cooldown, just one blast would wipe out like an entire battalion of same old specters. And then I was like, I'm on my way. So I recommend that for folks who just want to get through the combat pretty quickly. Spec out your AoE Antea roar or whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah, why does she just punch? She needed something more than just a punch.
Yeah, she needed a cooler basic. Yeah.
If you're a ghost, like, please don't just use your hands. Like, do something cool.
Do summon a fucking ghost spear or something like that.
Yeah, come on. Don't just punch. You got to do something better.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, that probably... Well, I guess actually one more question before we wrap up combat was the boss fights. You kind of hinted on some optional boss fights, which were not that great. But, like, what did you think of, like, the main boss fights? That was different. But, yeah, did any of that stand out to you? Or was it just kind of like, eh?
They were fine, but this is where the kinetics of the combat not feeling great started to bug me more, that because like I learned how to move in a regular fight against a bunch of ghosts. So in a boss, and like the thing with the boss fights too is a lot of them spawn ads. So guess what? You're fighting those ghosts again.
True. I forgot about that.
But I did think that like the designs of the major story bosses were very cool. Like there's one down in a mine that was like really cool to look at, but the fight itself was not, it was functionally not that different from what I do in normal combat. So there were a couple boss fights that were like, you're fighting a thing you've never fought before and maybe never will fight again, which was cool. But that wasn't always the case. I don't know. Yeah. How did you feel?
Yeah, they weren't mechanically, they didn't stand out. I think you could have done some more mechanically to make the boss fights feel different, like you said. Yeah. But I did like that the bosses, opposed to everything else you fight, have a lot of story depth to them. Like there is character behind these bosses. Like that's really cool. And you don't get that in a lot of games. Like to fight a boss and be like, wow, I know your whole like backstory and your childhood and like why you are the way you are and all of that. Like you get that with these bosses. Like there's something thematically deep to each of their to who they are as people or demons or whatever you're fighting, which was cool. So I felt like there was some that made the boss fight a little bit more engaging to me, that I knew that there was some kind of like story behind it, which was fun.
Right. And that's another similarity between this game and The Witcher 3, where like a lot of times when you come up against a big boss in The Witcher 3, you know its backstory, you know why it's here, stuff like that, and it makes the fight more interesting because of it. Even if The Witcher 3 is another game where people, a lot of people don't like the way the combat feels, maybe think it's too samey, stuff like that. So that can help a little bit. But unfortunately, to kind of wrap up the gameplay section of this, this is a game where I feel like the gameplay detracts or distracts from the things that you want to do, or like the combat is an obstacle that you have to overcome, like not in a fun way, on the way to the thing that you really want. And that's not a great feeling to have. Like I said, I was very invested in some late game stories. I was very invested in like sticking around in the world when I could have gone and finished the game. And I would like do these side quests and just come across a place where I'm like, I know that's going to be a combat. Like ghosts are going to pop out of the walls here. Like, I don't want to do this. And like, you never want to have that feeling in a game that you otherwise enjoy, of like this thing that's like, I got to pay my fucking taxes before I can go get this conclusion that I want. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And that's why we have to talk about it, because there is no getting around it as a part of the experience in the game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I just feel that, I'm glad Don't Nod's I hope they continue trying to get it right. Like so many of their other games, you don't have any, it's just the dialogue. It's just the decisions. Like they're doing something different here with Vampyr. Is that what we're calling it? Vampyr and Banishers Ghost of New Eden. Which, by the way, Banishers Ghost of New Eden, if you do the acronym for that, it's Be Gone, which is pretty cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know
Holy
if you...
shit. Yeah, didn't know that.
Meta. But yeah, so anyways, what I was saying is like they're doing something different with these action RPGs that have a strong storyline. Hope they continue to toy with it. I don't think this one lands it, but hopefully they're not done and they can continue to build it. It's already an improvement on Vampyr, so keep going, Don't Nod. You can get there.
All right, so with story setup, gameplay, aesthetics, and things in the books, it's time to wrap up the non-spoiler section of the episode by giving a quick recommendation. Specifically, who do you think that this game would appeal to the most?
I would say folks who really like good writing, that, you know, and storytelling in games. I mean, we've already said that a million times, but that is going to be the focus here. If you like good world building, good lore, very good like character driven story and narrative, I think this is a great game for you. You will have to tolerate some combat. It's not great. It's passable at best. So you will have to get through that. But I think it's worth it because there is so much. You're going to walk away from this game feeling a certain thing. And yeah, and I think that's what it's going for. So I would recommend that.
Yeah, I will say, without going into specifics, that like, you know, we set up that this game is working. It asks you to make a choice, and then it tests your commitment to the choice on the way to a payoff. And the payoff was worth it. So like, it's not one of those stories that falls apart the further you go. The opposite, in fact, I think it gets better as you go. It starts super strong and then kind of like resets itself with its new aims and then gets better as it goes. It's just really, really good. So I'll echo what you said. Basically, if you value storytelling and especially choice and how choice can tie into storytelling in video games, then this is awesome. And I hope it was successful because I would like them to make more games like this. The kind of Life is Strange style games are not really my jam. I mean, I liked Life is Strange 1, but I didn't even finish that game and never played any of the other ones. This is more of my type of game. And while it's not perfect, I hope that it did well enough for them. And I think it was successful in the main goals of the game. So I hope they're able to continue doing stuff like this because, like we said at the beginning, like you see Don't Nod and you're like, we're going to get a good story here. Even Jusant, like a game with
I
a
love
very
Jusant.
different style of storytelling. I loved the story in that game, and I loved kind of the experience of figuring out what's going on in that game. So like these are really good storytellers. So if that's something you value, absolutely check this out. And especially if you played Vampyr and thought that there was room for improvement, I do think that there has been an improvement since then. So, yeah, good game, and one that's not without its flaws, but still worth persisting, because I think the stuff it does well, it does very well, like worth it to go through. So, all right. Before we get into spoilers, housekeeping as always, and we always start with the guest. And as I said at the top of the show, Erik hosts a podcast called Pages of Play, which focuses on narratives in video games, but different, like there's different little like sub-series on the show and stuff like that. So please tell people about Pages of Play, what those kind of little sub-series are and where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pages of Play is a book club for gaming narratives. And I know a lot of folks do book clubs for games, but we do it in the sense that we take listener questions and we treat it like a book club, like we're all gathering around and answering questions. So Dave, you've definitely I feel like you have at least a question on every show that we do, but you've definitely submitted questions, and it's really fun because then it gives some listener input as well. So folks, if you're interested in that, you can kind of join us in our Discord. You can find me at Dovetail on Blue Sky. I'll be there under Pages of Play as well. And you can join our Discord, and then we have a channel for you to ask questions, which will then feature on the show. So we really like that. We like that discussion element. It's me and two other folks who will essentially, we pick story-driven games, and then we focus on like application and reflection in the questions that we choose and that we answer on the show. So that's kind of our main Pages of Play podcast. As Dave said, we have a few other formats. We also have Off the Shelf. Dave was our inaugural Off the Shelf guest, the first one on it. And that one is more of an interview format where we kind of do this hypothetical scenario. I bring a guest on and say, hey, let's say you have a library full of books that represent the greatest gaming narratives, and let's pick like 5 off those shelves and talk about them. So that's been really fun too. I've had all sorts of great people. Some of the people you even mentioned at the top of the show, Dave, have come on the show to talk about their favorite gaming narratives. So that's been a really good one.
Yeah.
And then Between the Lines is their third one, which is more of just like finding hidden gems and talking about them in a much like shorter, that's like probably 10, maybe 15 to 20 minute episodes, just focused on kind of like a hidden indie narrative game. Usually I'm doing that solo, or sometimes I'll even I've had a listener submit an essay about a game that they really liked, and so I just read that. You can tell I love like audio and people reading books on tape, audiobooks. That's the word I'm looking for. I was like, what's the word? So I love to do that, and just read someone else's essay is fun. So those are the 3 formats we have. We have a lot of fun diving into narratives. But yeah, really hope that you come check us out. And Dave, thanks for the ways that you've supported our show as we've gotten up and going as well.
Of course. Yeah. I'm happy to direct people over there, because I think it's, if you like the discussion here, the discussion over there is good, and it's pretty similar in like the way that we take it seriously, the way that we take the stories and the art seriously. One of the things I like about your main series is, and it's something that I've like incorporated or tried a little bit in my own show, is when you say you discuss the narratives book club style, it's literally like discussion questions style. It's not like we're going to run through the story in the order that it happens and talk about it. It's like, let's start with a question to kick off discussion. And then when we're done with that question, we'll start up with another question, and we'll go off in a different area. And I really like that approach. And like, I like when people who do the chronological walkthroughs and do them well, I like listening to that. But I personally, I don't think that I do that very well on this show. So I try to avoid it. And you all gave me some inspiration for a different way to approach that when we do our spoiler talk. So when we come back for spoiler time, we'll kind of kick it off in that same kind of way. So it's good stuff. And for the off the shelf discussions, there's a lot of crossover with the guests. So John from Gaming in the Wild and Jake from the pre-order bonus, and you did one with Brian from Pixelated Playgrounds, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and a couple
Kate
others
from No Small Games.
Yeah. So like a lot of our shared community have come on there, and it's a fun format to just celebrate really good stories in games. I don't remember what I talked about on my episode, but I'm sure they were good.
They were great. They were the best.
Yeah. So, I think I talked about Soma, if I remember right.
Oh, that was a great, yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. So, a lot of stuff to look forward to. So, I really appreciate the show, and like a relatively new show, but you wouldn't know it from listening to it because it's just really good. So, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'll put links down in the show notes for everyone if they want to check out Pages of Play, which again, I do recommend you do. While the music is playing us, in the spoiler break, go find some episodes to download. There'll be some good stuff there. So, down in the show notes. I already did my plugs at the top, but I do want to shout out one more time. Patreon support is really, really helpful for lots of reasons, but as little as $2 per month goes a long way on the Patreon. And then also, I do have a Discord server as well. Feel free to join. I think that we have a great community in there, and a lot of good discussion in there, both intelligent and just being goofy, being weird, sharing memes, pictures of our pets, stuff like that. We are truly a community, not just a place to talk about the podcast. So those are the plugs: Discord, Patreon, and check out Pages of Play. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, it will be full spoiler time for Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. All right, before we get to full spoilers for Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, I'd like to say thank you to the wonderful patrons who help support this show. A big thank you goes out to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Vakori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Sil Canet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, John E., Matthew Turner, Aliasi, Joseph Hooper, a new patron, Kate, and many more. Thank you all so much for supporting me the way that you do. It really means a lot to me in a lot of different ways. So thanks again. And if anyone would like to join them, you can do so at patreon.com/RealDaveJackson. And with that being said, it's time to go back. Full spoiler time upcoming for Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. All right, we're back. It is full spoiler time for Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. And as always, this is not going to be a chronological walk through the story. We may spoil things that happen near the end of the game or the ending anytime. So if you truly don't want to be spoiled, please go play the game and then come back to us. We will be here waiting for you. So I think best way to kick off the spoiler section is, again, one of the things that I really love about the game is not only how good the side quests are as their own individual kind of like isolated stories, but also how well they kind of reinforce the themes of your story with Red and Antea, the dilemmas that Red and Antea must be going through themselves as they kind of, sometimes they see their own story play out through other people in front of them too. So were there any side stories that felt special to you in that way?
Yeah, there was, again, this game's bread and butter is in these hauntings. The hauntings are, you can do some other quests outside of the hauntings, but the hauntings are really it's where you're going to get a lot of the lore, the story, the relationships. It's really crafted handcrafted, it feels like, each of these scenarios. And so definitely it's one of those things where I'm like, if people don't love doing side quests, just don't even think of these as side quests. They're main quests. They're great. Like, do them all.
Yeah.
I love them.
And even like the main quests they're just like the hauntings. They're just a little bit longer, and they have a bigger boss fight at the end of them, but they're functionally the same thing.
Yeah. The whole game revolves around hauntings. It's the core theme. It's the core relationship at the center of it between Red and Antea. So for sure. Yeah. So there's a few that I want to just mention, but then, just to be a little teaser to, we did an episode on Pages of Play on this. So I would recommend folks go listen to that if they're interested in these particular hauntings. There was one with Andrew White. This was up in Fort Jericho. He is an ex-soldier and accidentally killed his friend. So that's a really interesting one. I'm not going to go into the details on these because I think we talk about them ad nauseum on our show. But just wanted to shout out some good ones. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Dave. Go.
Yeah, if I can just real quick, the White, the soldier storyline is cool because that's a part of Red's backstory, as he was also a soldier. And it's not like, it's a part of who he is, but it's not really explored until this side story where, like, part of the way that you get him to accept the truth is, like, Red needs to talk to him soldier to soldier in a way. And it's, like, very rare that happens. So it's cool that, like, that part of Red's backstory is, like, explored a little bit more.
Okay, twist my arm. I'll talk about it a little bit. I just love him so much. He accidentally kills his friend in battle. And it's one of those situations where you're like, this wasn't something he intended to do. There was no malice behind it. He was trying to save his friend and he shot him. Like, I think his friend was, like, being held by an enemy and he shot him. And now his friend is haunting him, but he's haunting him because he wants him to forgive himself, which is like, in most ghost stories, that's not why someone's being haunted, because the ghost wants that person to forgive themselves. So there's a really big therapeutic lens to the Andrew White case. And, I guess if you guys are watching this, you'll see I have my notebook, but I have so many quotes from this game, so I must read another one when it comes to Andrew White. This is something. So Red is a really good. I mean, if I had a therapist like Red, I know Red's been through some stuff, so maybe I wouldn't have a Scottish warrior, banisher therapist, but he would be a good one if that were a thing. So again, Andrew White's in this situation where he's just really beating himself up over what happened, right? He won't forgive himself for killing his friend. And this is what Red says to him. I am sworn to protect the living from the dead, and sometimes themselves too. Talk about it, accept it, and you can go about living with the time you have left. So just a really good, like, hey, like, I'm here to arbitrate right between the living and the dead and protect the living from the dead, but hey, you're the one who's causing you the harm here. Like, you kind of need to accept that. And that's a big theme in this game, is and between the relationship between Red and Antea, is accepting what happened. Like, by speaking that it happened, but you validate that this is a real thing that happened and you can accept it and not just, like, cover it up. So that's a great theme. I love that part of that.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because obviously Red has to feel some guilt about how it all went down the night that Antea died, because,
of course,
like, we didn't mention, she kind of, like, went off in the middle of the night, and he, like, chased after her and jumped into a situation, and she was already dead. So he must be beating himself up a little bit, and so kind of like that. Admitting what happened and working through that with yourself. And then, like, Antea's side of things, I feel like as the game goes, she grows less and less accepting of what she's become. Like, she becomes more angry that she's a ghost as it goes along. And, like, there's a part near the end where she and Red get into a fight, basically, because she's having a harder and harder time accepting that this is what's become of her. And she sees Red on the other side, like, maybe I want to get your take on this. Like, it felt to me like Red was kind of focusing on the mission and focusing on his own guilt instead of like just kind of talking to her as normal and helping her through what she was going through, which was it felt like a natural thing. Like it felt like a natural way for him to go about things, and also a natural reason for Antea to be upset at him. Was that how you saw that?
Yeah, I have a section in my notes called "The Big Fight" with many bullet points. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but just maybe we can get there in a moment. But one thing I do want to note about that is Red is part of this is he's kind of he is delaying what's going to happen. Like,
yeah,
he wants to spend time with Antea. You know, this is the woman he loves. He lost her unexpectedly. He feels guilt over it. He wants to hang on to time with her. And so he's a little bit of like, stop and smell the roses, help other people. And she's like, we got to get this thing done. Like, we got to get there. I want to be, there's a line from her. See if I can find it real quick, where she talks about what it's like to be a ghost. And she says, I'm a shadow, caged and fading. Which is just like, she's like, this is not like a pleasant experience to be a ghost. Like, she's hungry all the time. She doesn't want to feed off Red. So she's feeding off of these ghost ties, which are essentially other ghosts like material that they've tied themselves to. So she wants to be done. And she gets upset with Red about him kind of lollygagging a little bit. So yeah, I don't know, Dave, do you want me to like talk about the fight now, or should I revisit that in a little bit?
Well, let's talk about the fight, because there's other haunting cases will tie into other aspects of this. But just real quick, I'll say that at the same time that Red was being, admonished a little bit for taking his time and not wanting to like confront the situation that they're in order to then take that step toward, we're actually going to, in my case, ascend Antea. Mm-hmm. I was doing the same thing as a player of the game. Mm-hmm. I was doing side quests. I was doing all the haunting cases. I was even doing, because I did all the hauntings in the game. And I was even doing some of those follow-up side quests, which are less interesting. From a gameplay perspective, they're not interesting at all. From a story perspective, it just depends on how much you care about that character and their kind of unresolved story. Like, there's the guy in Fort Jericho who infected his nurse and she died because he got mad and spit on her when he had like TB or something like that. And so the nurse died. He's still alive. And so it's one of those things, like you said, that the story's not over just because you did the quest. I helped the nurse ascend because she deserves peace. But this guy's still sick, so that's one of the cool things the game does is like, yeah, you can leave, but like that guy's still sick.
Right.
His story is not, his problems are not over, even though, he may deserve. Did you blame that guy, or did you ascend the nurse or banish the nurse if you're an awful person?
Yeah. Who would banish the nurse?
Yeah.
She's like one of the few like pure innocent doves in this game. I think her name is Nurse Ann Wings. Like Wings. Like, come on, Angel.
Nurse Wings, yeah.
Like, come on. You can't get more like on the nose about being an angel nurse than that. No, I definitely ascended her. She was awesome.
Okay. So, so I did that, and it was like, well, you get an extra side quest where it's like you can finish the nurse's work gathering ingredients for a cure for his disease. So I did that. But like part of the reason I'm doing that is the same thing that Red would probably do, which is just delaying this ending of this game that I knew was going to fuck me up when I got to it. So that's, that works. That storyline of Red prolonging this and Antea being like, dude, this fucking sucks here. Like, help me out. And it's very human of him to not be able to, again, like we said, when you're faced with it, it's really hard to make that step, I guess. Obviously, speaking hypothetically here. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thought on the fight.
No, I think he's also not great at processing his own grief. Like, truly. Yeah. He's good at processing it for other people. But not his own, like you said.
It's very real too, right? Yes. There's a lot of people out there that are really good at helping others with the same problems they can't help themselves with.
I kind of mentioned it in my quote earlier. He loses a sister, and they talk about, I think Antea mentions like, you never grieved over that. Like I don't even think he like cried over it. There wasn't like this big like funeral or anything. He just kind of kept going. And that's exactly what you see him doing here is he just like keeps going from one thing to the next to like not have to deal with the fact that Antea is dead.
Yeah.
And Antea wants to be like ascended and he's going to lose her. Like that's really, I mean, obviously if you're in that situation, really hard to deal with, but like he's delaying it. So yeah, I kind of want to talk about a little bit about the fight, more about the fight. So there's this core tension between Red and Antea. And it's interesting because, yeah, you start the game. They're like, hey, these are partners. They're lovers. And it's just going to be all roses between them. And it's like, no, it's not really how it goes. That's not how any relationship really goes. So there's this tension at the beginning is a little bit like faint, but it starts to grow and grow. And I think it's precisely that as Antea is getting closer to like her ascension, it's getting harder and harder. She's becoming like more and more bitter just about existing. So that's kind of growing in her, right? She has a backstory that you find out later. And since we're in the spoiler section, I can tell you all about this, which is some of these things are a little bit easy to miss. So yeah, maybe Dave, some of this, you'll be like, oh, interesting. But she encountered a demon when she was a child. And this demon manipulated her to burn her own house down. And she fled out of shame. I don't think it killed her parents, but it was just like this situation where she burned the house down, felt very ashamed by it. So she's kind of had this like almost like hatred towards ghosts and demons because of that. Like you can imagine if something like that happened to you, you would have that a little bit of rage towards, ghosts and whatnot. So she's had that. Now she's a ghost. So she has a little bit of self-resentment over that fact. And at one point, so Red does apologize over letting his, this grief that he hasn't processed over his sister's death cause impatience toward Antea. So he kind of apologizes about that. And Antea kind of goes on to recognize that she hasn't, so much of their relationship has been focused with her past trauma. This is another thing that will happen between two people in life. Like if someone has a bigger trauma, let's say, the other person's smaller trauma often gets overlooked. Right. Yeah. And so that's like true life stuff going on right here between these two people. Like someone has a bigger elephant in the room than the other. And so that's all they talk about. So that was really interesting. And this fight happens. So yeah, Antea's kind of been in this like mentally dark place. They have this big fight. Cause again, this is right after in the Fort Jericho section, Red is being very optimistic about their progress, what they're doing, like their relationship. He's kind of like, hey, we've been like getting to know each other more even after you're dead. Like it's been kind of cool. And Antea's not having it. She's really upset that he would say that, even though he's enjoying his time with her and soaking it in. She's really wants to get to the end of it all. And she lashes out at Red and, again, just says a lot of these, hurtful things about, suspecting his motives and not really being for her if he's not, with her and wanting to move at the same pace. He's a much slower like person in general. So he's not moving at the same pace as her. And I really liked what he had to say here. This is a very good tip if you're ever in a fight with someone. Sorry for the life advice coming on the podcast now, but this was a really important line that Red said. After he being criticized, he responds gently, "Help me to understand, Antea. Like, help me to understand what you're going through. Like, I don't get it. Like, there's something I'm missing, right?" She seems so cold to him, and he seems so much more like he wants to love her. He wants to give her his love. At least that's what we're seeing here. And I really liked that. And Antea comes to realize that she has been holding back from Red in some ways. She has been cold to him. And I love to see how she comes to grips with that and accepts that. There's a part where Helen Priest, also in Fort Jericho, falls in love with an idealized version of her ghost. This is a whole nother, maybe I won't go down that rabbit hole because that could take me a whole nother direction. But she falls in love with her late husband, but the ghost is like this idealized version of him that's not true to who he was. Yeah. And she says to Antea, "Loving him, right or wrong, made me who I am. How much of you is made from loving your man?" And Antea responds, probably not enough, which just had so much truth in it. So this fight happens, you're seeing this rift, you're seeing them both try to reconcile it, own their own issue in it, which I just love to see, that they both have some things that they did right, some things they did wrong, and they're both figuring it out and trying to come to grips with it for each other. So yeah, it was amazing. I loved how their relationship is so much more complex than most relationships you see in video games. So hopefully that just gives you a glimpse of all that. And sorry for my TED talk, but it's back to you, Dave.
No, it's perfect. It was really well said. And I think that you hit on something right at the very end there that I was going to say, and now agree with, that the reason that this fight works so well is because they have shared history together before the game starts, and that they're written well enough that they have backstories that could inform decisions that they're making in the present day that we learn about and we know about, and we can like kind of put those pieces together and realize where everyone's coming from on their side of this fight. And it's a fight that like it feels like it's coming from a place of realness. As someone who's been in I've been married for a while now. We just celebrated our 6th anniversary together. Yeah, thank you. And like it's a thing that can happen in a long-term relationship is like, it's not to say that you get like misaligned in what you care about, but like, or that you care less about somebody or something like that. But like, you can start to see the same situation in like slightly different ways. And sometimes those can result in like a fight where you don't realize that you're not seeing it that way until someone points it out, and it's made them upset. And that's what made this feel really real, where like, hey, we were both on the same page about this a long time ago.
Right.
And your priorities here have shifted and you've not talked to me about it. You're kind of celebrating this thing. Whereas my priorities have not only have they not changed, they've gotten stronger in that same direction since then. So there's that little misalignment there. And it's not like it's, and even transitioning over into this real life example here, it's not a fault of either person. They're very understandable situations that they're in, but sometimes it takes someone to like, hey, kind of give you a figurative slap out of that mindset that you're in, to just be like, hey, no, we're together on this, and we were together on this, and I feel like we're not fully together on this now. We need to reevaluate the situation here, which feels good. It is good storytelling, and it's the result of good characters with very well-rounded backstories and very well-explained and well-explored motivations. Red and Antea are just such great characters, fully realized characters, that it makes a scene like this possible, and like the depth to it all possible. Not just like, oh, we had a fight because of like a misunderstanding or something like that. This is a real fight. Again, not born out of malice from either person. It's just sometimes it happens like that.
Yeah, and they I feel like the people who wrote this game, so I studied in college psychology actually, and was thinking about being a therapist at one point in my life. But they seem very informed by like therapy and mental health techniques in this game. Just some of the ways that these characters are processing like this conflict, like the line I already said, like, help me to understand, is a very like mental health forward way of responding in conflict. And I really like that. Like there's this rift that kind of grows between them, but they like, it's all about acknowledging, right, like what's going on, and bringing that into the light and having a conversation about it is what kind of brings them back together. So there's a lot of cool, if you really get into the weeds of it, some of these things you're like, yeah, whoever wrote this game had some emotional intelligence, some way of piecing together how relationships work, and maybe some ways that you can, as people, like work through conflict and work through differences on display in this game, which I really appreciated. It's it just felt informed when it comes to comes to psychology, which is really cool to see in the writing,
Mm-hmm.
and that fight definitely demonstrated it. But Dave, we were talking about hauntings.
Yeah. I was gonna bring it back. So like that's and it's part of like the core thing of why I think a lot of these hauntings, like some of them are very like good but isolated, you know, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there are some that like really tap into the same shit you're dealing with in the main story and the main thing between Red and Antea that like takes them to the next level. So I like, there's a couple of hauntings where like you just like go about your business as a banisher, you make your decision, and then like your decision is thrown back at you, kind of challenging you in a way that I think is really good. It makes sense. Like someone would bring this shit up, like the beginning, when basically it's your friend's ghost in the tutorial, the prologue thing. Right after you get done talking to this ghost about how you can't stay around too long, you're a ghost, you have to go, your presence here is bad for the living, and then Antea dies and is thrown right back in your face. There's a part of the main story with Governor Haskell, who I blamed at the end of his story because that guy's a real piece of shit. There's a part of that story where, and I don't remember if it's like part of the main quest or a haunting in the Harrows, the town, but there's a cobbler who's trying this black magic ritual to bring a lover back to life. And it ties in really well because like you can tell that Red is interested. He wants to learn more about this ritual as you're going.
Tell me more.
Even though I swore to Antea that I would help ascend, just like for science, how does this ritual work to bring people back to life? Just, curious minds, and so it ties in really well because like you can imagine the restraint that Red has to feel to honor his oath to Antea, but the pull of like, yeah, I know that we said we would ascend you, but like this side story or this story is bringing up something that, we thought this would be unattainable. We might explore it, but actually now it's here. Again, it's another one of those things where like you can make a decision about, one thing or the other. When one thing feels impossible, it's super easy to choose the other thing. But now that impossible thing is here. So maybe we should reevaluate. And I like how the story later in the game gives you another chance to
reevaluate. Yep.
You reevaluate your oath. Did you change at all? Did you ever waver from the ascend path?
No, I was pretty committed to it for the reasons I stated earlier. I just feel like it was the thing that Antea would honor her the most. But I mean, it was definitely like, I was sad to see us moving towards that for sure. Like I loved how the relationship between Red and Antea, like there was little moments. There's like, we haven't talked about, there are some humorous moments between them and they kind of have some banter sometimes and it feels real. So I was going to miss that, and I was going to miss that for Red. I was like really going to be devastated when Red had to say goodbye to her. So I was definitely like thinking about it. But yeah, just the cost though of blaming was just pretty great. So it was hard for me to it was a tough pill to swallow if you went that route.
But they do such a good job of selling the relationship as like this is a relationship worth saving, that it might be worth doing some evil shit to save bring it back. Yeah. And you want the best for Red and you want the best for Antea. Really and what if the best is bringing her back to life and allowing them to live together in the flesh again? Like that conceivably could be a happy ending for them. Of course they would have to live with what they did to achieve that. That's the catch. But that reaffirmation of the oath, which I did too, doubled down on ascending Antea. I don't remember if it's before or after you choose, what are we going to do now that we know a little bit more? How are we feeling about our decision? But there's a part of that scene where Red basically just tells Antea how scared he is to lose her. And it's a very vulnerable scene. The voice acting is incredible in that. Like it's, you have your gruff Scotsman talking down somebody who needs to be talked down, but this shows that tender side of Red as well, where like I think he's more scared about this than Antea is, and she's the one who died, and she's currently a ghost. Like she's navigating the unknown, and Red is the one who's more scared to lose her here. Yeah, the great scene.
Yeah, one other haunting just to talk about as it relates to Red and Antea, which is a really interesting one, is the O'Hara sisters. Do you remember this one at all, Dave?
That's the thing about this. I don't remember any of them by name, but if you tell me what happened, I will remember.
Okay. So again, very interesting dynamic for the time period it was set in. You're kind of collecting notes between these two women who are sisters. And you're seeing like, oh, they really care about each other. That's cool. That's some sisterly affection. You find out later that sisterhood was a false front because they're lesbians and they can't, in this world, that's not allowed. Like that's just like not going to happen in colonial New England, right? So they had to fake that they were sisters just to be able to live together, to be accepted by society, right? So already you're just like, your heart's being a little tugged just by that. You're like, how terrible is that they had to like fake this in order just to be, understood as normal. But what happens in this, so you're helping them out, right? You kind of like, I think you have to like get like the death certificate from this like fake husband so that they can kind of be freed from the like law or whatever societal norms is caging them. You are as the Banishers helping kind of sever that, which is cool. But what's really cool in this is that, so the one woman who's haunting the other is looking at Red and Antea and is like, I want that. Like, I want to be the ghost that loves, my person, and there's a line where one of the sisters says to, I think she says it to Antea. She says, "Can you show me how you lie together?" Like, she's just like, she wants to know how they can be like in love, even though they're dead. Like, and it's just, and that's exactly what Red and Antea are going through too, of like, how can you maintain this love even in death? And you can kind of see for them, it's kind of one of those things you said earlier about like kind of being a little bit hypocritical. Here's like Red saying, hey, time to ascend you. But they're like, hey, you guys are loving each other, even though one of you is living and one of you is dead. Why can't we do that? Show us how to do that.
It's so like, just, Red is like, oh, actually it works because I'm going to use your ghost thing to feed her.
That
it's
is
like
what is happening. He
can't, obviously, it's the more he would try to explain it, if he ever tried to explain it, the worse it would sound. And the more hypocritical it would make them. So, I mean, I love that so many of these stories bring this up because characters know that Antea is there. Like they see her, especially the ghosts can see her, of course. And so multiple of these side stories, including this one, characters are not content to just be like, oh, your situation's different from ours, because they're not.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they were just like, if you get to benefit from this, can't we? What makes you guys any different, right? And so that again, but then that in the mind of the player, that's like, should I reevaluate this? Am I doing the right thing? It always is going back to that, making you reaffirm your commitment to it. So anyways, that was probably the one I wanted to talk about. There's some other really, they're all really good, but one quick note on another one that mechanically was different. I did one where I did a blame and an ascend. I wanted to see either side of it, and it was just vastly different if you do a different thing, which was really cool. And this isn't just story related. This is actually some gameplay related stuff. This one was, maybe I'll ask you again, but you might not remember Marcy Batchelor and Hugh Batchelor in the cave. Do you remember this one at all?
Nope, all not by name.
All right, we'll get into it. This is about Hugh Batchelor, true sicko. This was the one where his sister was thought to be an angel, and he kind of like took advantage of that as like a power grab and wanted to like show her off. And she was like, she starved herself mostly under his bidding. She like pierced her hands, like doing the whole like, you know, Christ hand piercing, and it was really messed up. And he was just like really all about being the guy with the angelic sister and showing her off to the world while she was like suffering, you know? So this guy was, you know, you talk about people you want to blame. I was like, this guy needs to be blamed. Yep. But part of it too is I wanted to ascend because I really cared about like this woman who's going through the suffering. I'm like, she needs to be done with this. She needs to like go on to
be at peace. Yeah.
Yeah. She needs to be at peace. So I went that route, which got a cool like ending, you know, and I think she finally like wisened up to what was happening as you ascended her, which was cool to like, for her to recognize that her brother was, you know, not doing right by her. It gave her a little bit of retribution with that. But then if you blame Hugh, again, who very, very cocky man. First of all, when you blame him and he like dies, right? Because when you blame someone, you like suck the life essence out of them. You banish, you like do the banish on them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You basically pull the life force out of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty grisly. Like, it's like they show you that for a little bit.
They scream and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it's not just a quick little like, okay, I blame this. It's like, whoa, I'm really pulling it out of them. Like they're suffering pretty bad here, which is pretty excruciating. But one thing he says as he's dying is, "Where are the trumpets?" Basically him thinking that he's going to heaven or something, you know, and like going to receive this fanfare of being this great person. He's realizing like, oh wait, like I was terrible. I'm not going to the good place. And I thought that was really cool of just like, it's a very like Shakespearean, where are the trumpets as he's dying. So I liked that, but here's the gameplay part that was cool. So you blame him, he dies. And whenever you blame someone, Red and Antea get a moment, which is really cool too. I didn't know this, where they get to physically touch. They like have a moment where they like actually are embodied together, which is really cool. But then the sister who was a ghost like runs away and busts through a wall that you can't access if you went the ascend route that I did earlier. So you're getting into a new section of this cave and you're like, okay, what's going on? So you go down there and it's full of like demonic symbols, a sacrifice altar, like some weird stuff that's been going on in this cave with the people that they've been bringing there. And she turns into like a demon who becomes a boss fight, that you fight her in this like cave, this person that you ascended earlier and everything was good. If you went the blame route, she turns into a demon and you fight her, which I was just like, wow, we went in vastly different directions here. So I really liked that haunting. Oh, you did? Okay, so now you know what I'm talking about. You're probably like...
I did the blame. No, I did all the hauntings.
Okay.
But I did the blame in here, so I did the boss fight too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was just, that was cool for me to see how the writing was able to pivot and open up, you know, new areas of the game, an optional boss fight, like takes the story in a different direction, that it was that like flexible and malleable that they could do that within one case. And that's the only one where I really like explored both options. I'm sure others were like that, but I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. That was a good one. I have a couple other like quick hit ones that I don't necessarily need to get too far into. The first one was good, the one with the cannibal, because it's just like terrible situation for everybody.
Right.
I think I killed the guy, like the living guy. I think I blamed him because he asked me to, and I was like, okay, sure.
Oh, that's right. He did do that.
Your life out here in the woods is fucking awful, and I don't think it's going to get better for you, so I will grant your wish. It's a rough start to the Ascend Antea Oath. I'm like, 0 for 1.
Yeah.
So there's that one. I liked the one I think it was in the Harrows, where it was the same person, the cobbler, tried to resurrect somebody, but there were two ghosts in the same body, and I think I read this right, they're in a relationship, and they're like ghost fucking in there or something. It was weird, bad, man. Bad situation. So I did what it took to remove one of the ghosts so that situation would stop happening, because that seems bad.
Yeah, you don't want ghost babies in there, let's be real.
Right. And then the one with the one indigenous character where they play on, the historical story of the smallpox blankets to, I think the ghosts, I didn't write this down, but if I remember right, the ghosts like tie to the living world is just pure rage and revenge on the people who did this to her people. Yeah. So
that's the
good story there.
She goes on the hunt. That's that symbol I was talking about earlier where you're seeing this everywhere. Those are the people she was trying to take down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, one more. There was a haunting case, which I thought was cool. Another thing they don't really touch on too much in the game is slavery, because we're 160 years before the Civil War, if I'm doing my quick math right. There's one story that involved a slave, and again, I think it's just because they didn't want to go there with the storytelling. But there was one where a slave pretended to love his owner so she would set him free. And then his ghost is like, get me the fuck out of here. And like, I think his tie to that is because her love for him was so strong or something like that. When he was like, this was all a front, please let me get out. I need to be free of freedom. This.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though he's dead. So I let him ascend, just be like, hey man, do what you got to do. I get it. Like, sorry for your luck, lady, but with my 2025 morals here, like, it's your slave played you. I'm very sorry, but I'm not really that sorry.
But it wasn't consensual. Let's be real. This whole time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Two things right there where it's like, American history in the year 1695, slaves and mistreatment of indigenous people, very light in the story and the setting here, but little stories like do touch on it a little bit. If anyone were to play this game and be like, they really just like papered over what some may think would be a responsibility to like incorporate slavery or mistreatment of indigenous people into the story, because that's what really was happening. Like, I get it. That would be a critique where I'd be like, yeah, you're right. This is just what they chose to do. Little short things.
Yeah. I mean, you'll definitely see like bigotry in this game. Like that's not, like they'll
we're
definitely
going to talk about the
that.
nightmare soon.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. But it is not, they're like light touches, at least in terms of like the actual people you see undergoing it. Like the themes are there, but yeah, I would agree. It's a little bit like they skirted around some of it in some ways too. I don't know how best to put it, but.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that the thing with the nightmare, to get into that, arises from witch trials, which I did look it up because I was like, what year were the Salem witch trials? Turns out 5 years before this game was set. Yeah. So right in that time period. So that, and I think that's safer to tackle as like a theme of bigotry and injustice. I think that they may have felt that this was just a safer thing to build their story around, which was witch trials and misogyny, and just basically like something you pointed out in the notes, where when men dabble in black magic, they're demonologists. When women dabble in black magic, or maybe don't even dabble in black magic, but you just don't trust them, they're witches and they need to die. And that's the inciting event before the events of the game that sets New Eden on this path to the curse. Yeah.
So one line after Red is thrown out in the very beginning, when he's thrown out of the, I guess it's you're like in a church and you get thrown out after Antea dies, you meet Seeker, who is like a witch apprentice essentially, or involved in some type of, and really witches as well in this game are like, I would call them like shepherdesses of the dead. They're actually trying to help manage that thin veil between the living and the dead, kind of like, banishers are trying to kind of cut those ties. Witches are more of trying to create some type of peace and harmony between the living and the dead. And demonologists are just like in it for the power and knowledge, of course. But anyway, so you meet Seeker, who's this like young like apprentice. You meet her like master later, Ceridian. But she tells Red that the worst anger rises from the most terrible wrongs. And that is like, if I could put like one very like theme over the story of Deborah, it's that. This like this horrific injustice in the community that has been covered up, and that's what's causing this curse upon the whole community, and everyone's affected by it. You know, it's like like you said earlier, the crops are failing, people's health is declining, you know, nothing seems to be going right, the weather's out of whack, like everything's going wrong because this community has covered up this like great injustice and tragedy. And it needs to be like the point of it is like it needs to be known. It needs to be understood. It needs to be validated and called out and brought into the light. And that's what this nightmare is seeking, for people to know her story, right? And I really liked that about it. Like at the same time as you're Red and Antea trying to figure out their thing and ascend or resurrect Antea, they're also in that process getting to know Deborah, who is the nightmare, her story, because that's what's causing this curse, which they came to New Eden to solve in the beginning. You know, that was why they're here. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah,
I really like how there's a certain point where the story branches into like, you can pick, do you want to go to the Harrows, the Barrows, the Harrows?
Harrows, you got
the
it.
Harrows. You want to go to the Harrows first, or do you want to go to Fort Jericho first? And I like how those, again, they have their mini stories, their mini hauntings, but they're telling both halves of this greater haunting of the nightmare. And you just find out about all of the people who failed Deborah throughout history. So I did the Harrows first, which is kind of fitting. I think it's the order that the story played out, where Governor Haskell basically put on this sham of a witch trial. She was, as far as I can tell, innocent of anything. Even if she, I don't know, did she dabble in witchcraft a little bit?
So, yeah, good question. She essentially encouraged her students to be able to pursue what they wanted to study. And if that involved witchcraft, she was for it. So like Seeker was one of her students and was interested in the occult. And she was like, she was basically like, just because you're a woman doesn't mean that should prevent you from studying the things you want to study. You know what I mean? So she was very much like some postmodernism to her, but just like this idea of like, like the liberty pursue like the knowledge that you want to pursue. And I liked that she had that kind of vibe to her and wasn't going to take society's like shackles when it came to those things. So yeah, I wouldn't say she was like outright like a witch, but she was helping the witches, if that makes sense.
Right. But even as you explained it there, even if she was this world's version of a witch, it's not like the witches in this game are just like fucking things up for the townspeople just for the sake of evil. They're just seeking to understand what's clearly real in the world of this game. Like if in our world, we suddenly find out that ghosts and spirits and shit are real, and there are ways that we can interact with them, the people want to learn about how to do it. It would be another offshoot of science, is figuring out how it all works. And the men are like, I wouldn't say like the men are celebrated for doing it, but they're definitely not put to death by stone, crushing for doing it. So she is wrongly killed for being a witch. Governor Haskell gives the order to kill her. He finds her guilty of doing it. So that's the first wrong. Then the second wrong is the General Pennington, I think his name is, who imprisons her. And that's the Fort Jericho storyline that you find out. So it's both halves of this. You basically, like, again, the main story, as you're kind of powering up, you're going through Red and Antea's dilemmas as they go through the game. The main story is finding out how everybody failed Deborah at every step along the way. This is kind of like a little bit cheesy in the way it's presented, but I thought it was really good at the very end when you're going back to the meeting house and you kind of hear the the screams of Deborah as she's being killed, and she's like screaming like, why won't anyone help me? You all know that I'm innocent of crimes. I don't deserve to die, and no one is helping me. And it's a little bit cheesy, but it's really effective to just kind of finally get her side of this before you go deal with what has become of her in there. And like, she didn't turn into the nightmare. The nightmare is like a manifestation of her anger towards all the wrongdoing in here.
Yeah, of the cover up of people not understanding it. And I like so the main like boss fights are all around this, like you said, and the Penningtons involved. These are the people you met early in the game as well. Governor Haskell, even the sisters, oh my gosh, what are the who
Kate
are like the
and Thickskin?
Yeah, Kate and Thickskin. From my understanding, Kate and Deborah like had a relationship or something like that. And Kate kind of like turned her back on her more or less when things got dicey. Like almost like I'm with you until you're suspected, and then I'm kind of like, oh, I didn't know you. To avoid being caught up in it, right? So kind of this betrayal. So she's also part of the reason Deborah is angry is because her like, you know, friend and lover basically like turned her back on her. So there's that whole thread through. And I really like that. Yeah, each of like the main areas explores more of Deborah's story. You learn more about it as you go. But one thing I wanted to talk about with that is also the side quests. You learn more about it too. Like you're coming across. So again, this is like feels like a very real town. Like you're coming across people who knew Deborah, you know, as you play the game, even in not these like main quest missions, like Goody Perkins, if you remember. I keep saying names as you'll just be like, yes, Goody Perkins.
Yeah, I just remember those main, like, you know, the main big NPCs in each area. Everyone else, I got nothing.
Yeah. She was the one whose husband died at sea. She was the one on the boat who hanged herself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that.
Okay. Yeah. That was you like turn a corner and you just see like her from a boat, like in the gallows. Is crazy. Very memorable. But she, her husband died at sea and she wanted something to blame. She was so mad. She didn't understand why. It was just like, and honestly, it was like a natural thing that happened. I think, you know, it was a bad storm or something, but she wanted a scapegoat, and Deborah was like a convenient scapegoat for her. And she used the line, I knew Deborah guilty because I needed her to be guilty, which is just like kind of messed up. But it just goes to show you, like, with this witch trial stuff, it was an easy way for people to blame the crap they were going through in their lives on someone else and feel like, like if we kill them, then I'll feel better, you know, about myself and whatnot. And there's this kind of like old adage, right? Like, we're afraid of the things we don't understand and we hate the things we can't conquer. I think that's how the phrase goes. But just this idea of like, we didn't understand Deborah and what she was like. She was just different, you know, for her time, ahead of her time, like being much more open to the occult, being much more open to like letting people pursue the things they want to pursue and who they want to be in a world that was very much like would try to shoehorn you into a very particular type of person. Like Deborah was not that. And so when things started going wrong, people were like, yeah, it's that weird woman over there. Like, she's to blame, you know, which was just very tragic. And you're right. It's like, no, she never caught a break, and it just kind of piled up and led to her death, which, you know, is kind of the fundamental wrong in this game.
Yeah. And you can see the thought process. It doesn't make it right, but you can see the thought process from those people of like, well, in this world, black magic and witchcraft and things are real. So if there is a witch over here and my life is shitty because something's not
right,
something's not working here, I can just blame the witch because obviously the witch is doing it to fuck my life up.
Right.
So like you said, if we need a convenient scapegoat and if we don't really understand what's happening here, it'll be easy to just say, oh, it's the witch. The witch is causing my crops not to grow. The witch has caused my husband to die at sea, stuff like that. It's understandable while also obviously being wrong. And the only thing that, like, I think that I like the conclusion to this is not we kill the nightmare and banish it, and we do it like you do, fight the nightmare to weaken it, but you don't overcome it truly by force. You overcome it by acknowledging
Validation.
what's happened and validating Deborah to say, like, the first person, she just needs literally anybody to say, like, we hear your story, we accept the wrongs that have been done to you, and like it's time for you to move on peacefully now that your story is known. And
yes.
Hey, I mean, some of the people who did this to you, I killed some of them. So,
So there you go.
And even if we didn't, like, I didn't kill the Newsmith sisters, I let them live, and I let Pennington live also, because the way that's presented is like there's Pennington and there's like an uprising in there, and I got the ghost out of there instead of. That was one of those where, like, I would have liked to have probably killed both of them, the ghost and the guy, but I had to pick one, and the ghost.
Yeah.
The ghost seemed like it was going to fuck up more stuff, so it was like, okay, the ghost has to go. But anyway, some of the people responsible for it are dead, and the people who are still alive are very aware of the role that they played, and everyone else knows about it too. So, like, this is what we can offer you. Is that enough for you? Basically, right?
Yeah. Well, the last thing that Red tells Deborah is precisely that. He says, "Your tale is told, and we are thankful for it. You are heard. You are free to go." So, it's just that. And again, back to like some psychological techniques, like validation is so important in a like mental health recovery and mental health journey. And because so often when we're wronged, we struggle so much because we feel like no one understands the truth. And it's only us. Like, why doesn't anyone else see what I've gone through? And you can convince yourself that you're crazy. If no one else believes you, you're like, man, what actually happened here? So just having someone validate your feelings, validate what you went through, is so powerful to helping someone like accept it. And even if it was like something bad that happened, for someone else to like know that and see it and see you in that is really it really helps you out. So I think that's what kind of Red was trying to do with Deborah. It's not like he could change what happened to her. Like, she's gone. She's a nightmare now. Like, he can't go reverse that, but he can validate that, hey, like, this is a real thing that happened to you, and it was wrong. Like, it wasn't right. It wasn't good. It was a terrible thing. Like, we understand that. And the people now that I've been taught, and he's pretty adamant throughout, like, yeah, y'all have done wrong by Deborah. Like, he's not shying away from the fact that, like, yeah, when he talks to Haskell and all them, he's like, you blamed an innocent woman, So I think this whole story is him and Antea trying to like wake people up to that.
Yep. Well said. Yeah. And so that's the conclusion of the nightmare storyline, and Deborah can finally rest. And then it pulls into the ending of the game and the ending of Red and Antea's story. So I really like the way this works as like a mechanical thing to choose what ending you get. So it's not necessarily blame a bunch of people and bring Antea back, or ascend or banish a bunch of ghosts and therefore you ascend Antea. That's kind of how it works, but it really checks the promises that you made and whether you actually upheld your promises, more so than, you can imagine little meters. The blame meter needs to be higher than the ascend meter, and then you'll bring Antea back because, 7 versus 5 or whatever.
Sure.
And it's just not that simple. What's important is that you kept your promise, whatever your promise was. So I looked it up. I think there's 5 endings to this, 4 or 5, something like that. There is the you kept your promise and resurrected Antea ending, and you kept your promise and ascended Antea ending. And then there's 2 endings where you promised something and then didn't keep your promise through your actions throughout the game. There's 2 separate ones. Oh, and then there's another ascent ending that's like not quite as complete and happy in air quotes as the the quote, the good Ascent ending. So there's 5, I think. Which ending did you get?
I got the kept promise and ascended Antea.
Okay, me too.
Yeah, and it was very touching, man. I was feeling it when that was happening. Because there's just the sense of like you realize it's finally here. You know, you've kind of been like just like Red was. You've kind of been like avoiding it all this time. But you kind of you reconcile with Deborah. Like, you know, she's able to pass on, and then it's like, all right, it's, you know, it's time for Antea to go.
Yeah. It's not really drawn out either. Like I
No.
kind of like that, where it's like a very, like, it's not like a matter of fact, like off you go. It's very like Red doesn't fight it. He's, you know, it's really sad. Like I had tears in my eyes watching the end of the game. But it's very much like Antea's like, okay, it's time. And Red is like, okay, it's time. They, you know, they have a couple last words together, and then she vanishes. It's not a very long scene. You know, both characters, I guess that shows that Antea's been ready, but Red is finally like, okay, like it's time to let it happen.
Yeah. And he, so when he finally does ascend her, he says, you know, we will be together again one day, to which Antea responds, take all your time. And that's what really got me, because it's like her just realizing they've just had a really hard time, you know, going through all of this, and with Deborah and the community. There are pockets of joy in this game, but they're pretty few and far between.
Yeah, it's not a happy game.
It's not a happy game. And so it's just like Antea's way of saying, like, you're free of this. Like, go, you know, enjoy the rest of the life that, like, live a full life, like, go enjoy it. Like, we'll be together again one day, but don't rush to that. Like, go live a rich and fulfilling life. Like, be happy. And I was like, that means a lot coming from her, who's been kind of like dragging him down in some ways. Again, like, I'm not saying that she doesn't love him, but just, you know, her haunting like him, and just, you know, some of the bitterness that and backstory that I've shared with that she has had a really hard life. Like, it has been, it's taken a toll on Red, like being someone who loves her and cares for her. Of course, if she's like abused in her life, like that is going to take a toll on him. And so she's finally like, you know, freeing him of that. And it was just like really, really sad, but really like beautiful in some ways too. And I really liked that kind of ended that way.
Yep. It's a really nice ending, and all the endings have these little, you know, cutscene things that play out. They're very stylized, we'll say, and this one is basically like Red lived on. He told his kids about Antea in the future. So like obviously he did find love again. He had kids, stuff like that. So he did, we can assume, live a full and rich life in a lot of ways. So it's a really sad ending, but this is the happy ending. This is the best ending for everybody involved.
Right.
So did you watch the other endings?
No, I know that I see in your notes you looked into them.
Okay.
I'd love to hear more about them. I don't really know anything about them.
So I'll start with the one where you promise to resurrect Antea and then you do it. So that one requires you to blame like many more people than you ascend. So it's not I don't think it's enough like within the math to just be like, you know, 10-9 blames versus ascensions. I think you have to like overwhelmingly blame, or on the other side, overwhelmingly ascend people to bring her back. And maybe it just works that way for the ascent ending. Anyway, the resurrection ending, he brings her back to life. They have this reunion and he's like overjoyed at it. But then once that moment is past, like Red killed a bunch of innocent people along the way, which was not in his nature at the beginning of the game. Like this is something that he did like kind of unnaturally to bring her back. And I don't think this ending is very good, because what happens is they bring them back to life and then they basically imply that Red just got a taste for killing people, and
oh no,
they go on the rest of their life. They call it, the quote is, with a new shared interest, a taste for forbidden fruit. And the cutscene shows Red killing someone. So it's like, I think this ending would be a lot better if it was just like Red was broken by what he did to bring her back and couldn't enjoy having her back because now he's fucked in the head for killing all these innocent people. Whereas like the ending where they just like go around, the countryside killing people because that's what they like to do now. Like, I guess I can see it. Like,
yeah,
you know, they
really
develop
fit.
a taste for it, but it doesn't feel like the right way for them to process what they did to get this. Like,
right.
if they were to bring Antea back, but she's horrified at what he did and he's horrified at what he did, and therefore they don't have this loving future together because of what they did to bring her back. I think that would hit harder. Like, I saw this ending and I was like, that's kind of goofy. Like,
it feels like a dramatic right turn or something, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, just a little bit too far down that path when it doesn't feel... Because the game lives or dies by, like, nuance. Like, small variations on choices, on character, on morality, on all these things. That's what makes, like, a really good story, is when it's believable, when there's nuance. But if it's too, like... Yeah, if he's bloodthirsty... I'm now maybe that's the Vampyr ending. You become a vampire and you're like just gotta kill people.
Oh, there is not to actually go into it because I don't know too much about it, but there is a tie. Like you find a book. You find a book that ties into the vampire lore,
shared
from
world
London.
or something.
Yeah, so it's a shared world, which is cool. I mean, if there's ghosts, why not vampires? Who cares? The other two endings are two bad endings where you break your oath, basically. And in one of them, they show Seeker rapidly aging. Red is caught in a time loop in both of these. In one of them, Red is caught in a time loop where he's basically sent back to the time in the cave to try again next time. So it's a time loop where he's sent back to try again, basically. But the weird part about this ending is it shows Seeker in her like normal young state, and she rapidly ages up and she looks exactly like Ceridian, which opens up this weird thing of like, is Ceridian's Seeker from another dimension or some shit?
Oh, wow.
Like,
it's a multiverse game now.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird. And then there's another ending where Red... Basically, Antea begs Red to ascend her, and he says no. And so it's like this bad, selfish choice. Probably if you promised to ascend her and then blamed too many people and went back on it. He says no to Antea. It's rough to watch, and then the nightmare kills him. And that's the end of that one. So there feels like there's... if you were to go back on your word... The game gives you appropriately fucked up endings for doing that.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like a lot of those don't sound super satisfying. I do feel like it was, to your point earlier, it felt like it went by quick, but that kind of felt like intentional in some ways of like you're there at the end and there's not a bunch of fanfare. It's just the end. Like,
right.
You're at the end of the road. You've done what you set out to do. You've helped Deborah find peace. That was why you were called to New Eden. Now it's your oath. And once you do it, it's just like, I feel like it went by quick. It was emotional, but it didn't linger. It really didn't linger at all. Which was very unique because I feel like a lot of games will really linger in that last moment. But it just shows to show you don't need to linger in order to have an emotional response. Like I was still pretty affected by it even without that.
No, because like if you think about it, this moment is 38 hours in the making in my game. Like they don't need to set the emotional stakes of this moment. I've been living it for dozens of hours at this point. It's just the end of the story. It's literally just the conclusion to this extended thing we're building up to. Like, and that's one of the best. I mean, the storytelling in this game is so fucking good, man. Like there's so many levels of it that are, the Deborah storyline that weaves through all the people that you meet is really good, really well told. The individual storylines that you play through and the hauntings are all individually interesting little stories. And then just this long extended buildup to this moment of either keeping your promise or breaking your promise. But however it ends, you've been building up to it since literally hour 1 when she dies and you meet her again as a ghost. So it didn't need to be like this big drawn out 15-minute, thing. They say their goodbyes and it's really touching, and then she departs because we've been building up to it and it's time for it to just end. And why should Antea's ascent or resurrection, but why should her ascent be any different than anyone else's that you've done?
You're right. I didn't think about it that way, but it just feels like it's just another one. It really does.
Yeah. It just means more to us.
It just means more to us because of who we know who it is, and we've spent so much more time with that person. But it is like the animation is just as quick as it was with everyone else.
Yep. I mean, she's not special. She is a ghost just like everybody else. So,
and that's, I mean, honestly, like, I feel like for a lot of folks, death is pretty anticlimactic. Maybe I'm being a downer, but it's just like it's kind of like that is the end, And so I feel like that is a little bit true. I feel like video games, stories, we tend to put a lot of fanfare around death because it's like it is a very dramatic thing that happens. But in real life, it can be pretty. You just kind of go quietly for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Best case scenario, you kind of go quietly, right?
That's true. That's true. So it's just it showed that side to that story, which I feel like was a good ending in some ways.
Yeah, it just really well done. They nailed the ending just as they nailed so many other aspects of the storytelling. Notice how in the spoiler section here we've barely talked about boss fights or anything like that.
Any gameplay related.
This is the part of the episode where we can really focus on the good shit, the important shit. So here we are. Yeah, I think this is a good place to close this out, just as we just closed out the main story. So this has been really, really good. I've been really excited to talk through, especially how these things in the spoiler section intertwine and stuff like that. So this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for A, taking the time, but B, just giving so much to the conversation. Really appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me on. This was great. I loved being able to dig back into this game and you kind of giving me an excuse to do so and really process. Like some of this stuff you just got to kind of process out loud. So I really appreciate being able to do that with you.
Of course.
That was great. And now I'll just kind of ghostly apparate into the ether as I go.
Yeah. If I really work on my video editing skills before it's time to edit
you can
this
ascend
podcast.
me.
Yeah.
Ascend me, Dave.
Right. So again, I thank you for the conversation and for taking the time. This has been really good, and I think that we did the story justice. So I'm happy about that.
Awesome.
So at the end, I will say, as always, for everyone who's still with us, number 1, you are my hero. Number 2, remember to check down in the show notes. Again, as music is playing us out, check down in the show notes for Pages of Play podcast, so you can find some things to check out. There's an episode about Banishers. Did anyone on Off the Shelf bring up Banishers in their 5 games?
Not yet.
Okay.
Still a chance. Still time.
Still time. It's certainly worthy of it. It will just take the right person. So check for Pages of Play. Find something to listen to. You will enjoy what you find. And as always, tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Listen to Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. Hosts Gooey, McKenna, and friends flashback to the 90s and early 2000s with a look at the Nintendo 64's catalog and its contemporary cultural and historical context. Starting with the console's launch titles and proceeding in release order, we discuss classics like GoldenEye, Super Mario 64, and Star Fox 64, as well as some not-so-beloved games, lesser-known titles, and everything in between. Along with game-specific deep dives, we also cover other bits of pop culture from the time, like films, music, and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone?
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.